To my audience, first of all, thank you. Shout out to our friend Chud Logic for being so kind as to rate us with was it 100 plus people, 177 individuals previously. Thank you, Chud Logic. I hope you're having a fantastic night. He's probably already gone, but Chud Logic, thank you for the kindness. Right, shout out to my man Chud. If you're new to this channel, right, and you're like what you've seen so far, hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. We do this all the time. We do this how many days a week? 7 days a week. We always have content for you here, and we'd love for you to be a part of this, right? We are going to have I think an explosive panel topic in just a second. So we always got more for you. So check us out, especially for social and chat. For our social media, we have Twitter where we tweet things, and we tweet every so often. We have Discord where we do everything, harness with the community, right? All of our content happens through Discord. Come through our Discord, be a part of the community. We'd love to have you. Check out our Discord. YouTube is where you find the VOD. Like, comment, and subscribe to be notified when we're putting up content there. If you've missed anything, check out our YouTube channel. Okay, consider becoming a YouTube member, supporting us that way, hitting that join button. Thank you, Martin the Cynic, for being so kind as to sub for 13 months. Hey, over a month. Shout out to you, Martin the Cynic, and someone else previously. Silty Raz also for 13 months previously. Smug Pug, that was a day ago. That was a while ago. Anyway, but yeah, thank you for the 13 months. You're all kind of you. Okay, let's get to the reason why you're all here. So, obviously, the Stare Fanatics mouse. Anyway, so over the weekend, there was a shooting in a Buffalo supermarket. The attack was clearly a racist attack on the black residents, as declared by the suspected shooter. Is this violence a reflection of the current political environment? In an era where the Great Replacement theory is prevalent and the right is engaged in a moral panic of CRT, can this be laid at the feet of the Republican Party? If not, who else would you do you feel? How else do you feel a person like this could be radicalized? Excuse me. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Anarchist Susan, for the 100 bits. Buffalo shooting happened, and people are wondering why did it happen. It's the same thing we usually wonder when we have our regular scheduled mass slaughters here in this country because of guns. But still, people are wondering how it happened. I think there's some pretty clear lines that show like ideologically where this kid came from and what drove him there. But I'm curious if other people disagree, right? Are conservatives to blame for this? Like not like an individual conservative, but just like the conservative party as it stands, really. The rhetoric that's conservative media, certainly, right? The rhetoric that's going back and forth there. Are they to blame for this latest and certainly not the last slaughter? So let's start with Bam.
Yeah, I've been super into everything regarding this. I've seen the video, read the manifesto, well, most of the manifesto. And to be completely fair, it doesn't seem to be like this doesn't seem to lay at the feet of the Republican Party. He himself said that he was inspired actually specifically by the Christchurch shooter. I won't say his name because I feel like saying people's names like in these situations makes these situations worse. But so yeah, I wouldn't lay it necessarily at the feet of the Republican Party. He said he identified himself politically all over the place, but he said the closest you could get is National Socialist, which we know what that falls into. And I like, because of the types of conversations that happen on Twitch, when you hear about the Great Replacement, there does seem to be a leaning that preaches like that that sort of mentions this narrative time and time again. So there's not no responsibility, but yeah, I don't think it would be really fair to lay this completely on Tucker Carlson and the Republicans. I have plenty of beef with them, but not necessarily this.
Okay, all right. I'll have to educate you two later on. Eli.
Yeah, I think this 100% completely falls at the feet of the Republican Party. I think this also falls at the feet of people like content creators who also espouse great replacement theory and great replacement bullshit, or make those sort of dog whistles. When you look at the Republican Party, or when you look at not even just the Republican Party, but like also political pundits from certain news stations, what have you. For instance, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson espouses some sort of Nazi dog whistle just about every freaking broadcast. And he's notorious for doing this. This is 100% at the feet of Republicans. Marjorie Taylor Greene does the same type of shit all the fucking time. The majority of the Republicans in office do this same type of shit all of the fucking time, spouting stupid BS about how, it's the dog whistles are just, a little different now. Instead of, just outwardly being against immigrants and saying great replacement theory, they say, oh, well, we really need to secure the southern border because we have a problem with them bringing drugs, crime, rapists, looters, all this other kind of shit. As if the Nazis aren't coming from fucking Canada. But not all of them. But for the most part, yeah, I think this is at the feet of the Republican Party. And just a lot of right-wingers in general. They keep espousing the white supremacist dog whistles. They keep espousing the great replacement theory. Also, let's not forget that within this month alone, it was either, I know it was one this month, but there might have been, if the other one I might be thinking of might have been last month, there were like 2 panels on Twitch where a bunch of people got together and discussed and debated great replacement theory, which in my opinion gives undue credence to these people and their dog shit points that are just utterly fucking ludicrous and don't need any sort of, publicity being brought to them or any sort of validity in the form of, debating these things, because again, they're just utterly fucking ludicrous. And I think there's something needs to be said about normalizing these points and these ideas through platforming people on platforms like Twitch and YouTube and what have you. And I can get more into it later.
Absolutely. Hey guys, how about the hype train? We're level 1 hype train, 40% down, 60% left, less than 90 seconds on the clock. Can we get to level 2 hype train? Support this channel, sub to channel, give bits or give subs. All right, Fanatic.
Whoo! So, it looks like the great replacement, I don't know why you would say that, like, that whole argument is, like, completely false, because I think it's actually true. We have the projections. I don't know about, like, the projections are there. White people are going extinct. They're, like, less than 1/10 of the population. And I think this is somewhat their own doing. I look at the fact that, like, they've completely dehumanized Black people in this country, like, tried to literally compare us to animals and things like that. And so as a result, now you have all these Mandingo stories and things that exist out there. So now you have Black men that are being completely objectified, and white women can't stop bouncing on Black dick. So then now at the end of this day, you're going to see every time when you have a Black person and a white person and they produce an offspring, that kid is considered Black. Y'all created the 1 drop rule. Y'all wanted it to be so badly that everything was segregated and didn't recognize that your women couldn't take the dick. So now at this point, now you're complaining because you're realizing, like, wait a minute, now our progeny are going to not really be the majority anymore. And it's starting to become freaking, like, it's a scary thing. And I get it. I don't know why we would keep denying this. We do know that this is happening. I'm not encouraging it to happen. I'm just saying this is a fact of life. White people are going extinct, and them niggas are scared about it. And that's what this nigga was talking about. And that's what the Christchurch shooter was talking about. We all recognize this. Nothing about that is fake. That's exactly what the problem is. And something needs to be done about it. And I think what that thing is, we need to probably abolish the concept of race, because otherwise white people are going to lose this war. And it's going to look really, really ugly. And we're going to continue to see violence. We need to stop putting so much emphasis on race and give Black people the reparations so we can get to an equal footing and race can be significantly less important. That's what we need to do. And I don't blame the media on this, because I think what these people are doing is looking at actual research, and the actual research is proving white people are going extinct.
Wow. I didn't see that coming. All right, fair enough. Sproticus.
I honestly don't give a fuck that the white population is going down. I couldn't honestly care less. It's of no concern to me. This shooter was an absolute fucking racist. I watched the shooting. There was footage afterwards. I read the entire manifesto. I have the manifesto in front of me. I do not think this 100% lies at the feet of the Republican Party. I do think it lies at the feet of people like Tucker Carlson who do spout great the white replacement theories and kind of keywords here and there. I do think it lays at the feet of people like them. Although the party in total, I do not believe so. And I majorly believe that he even states it in the manifesto that he was, and I can go through it if you want, but he states in the manifesto that he was radicalized by 4chan. So no, I do not think this falls at the feet of the Republican Party. No.
Okay, let's go left to it.
All right, so I'm going to talk about where the prompt is true. All right, there are absolutely flaming racists that congregate and talk about racist things, and some of these racists commit racist attacks. And there are racist theories that seem to be associated with this behavior, such as Great Replacement theory. But how my understanding of Great Replacement theory, though, is that it's about a secret cabal of Jews that are organizing this behavior. There's no evidence of that. But where I think the prompt leaves reality is when it references, moral panic over CRT or the actions of the Republican Party. And I think this is patently unfair. I think the mainstream conservative argument against CRT is anti-identitarian at its core. You hear the conservatives say it, we are all Americans, we should treat people on their merit. Meanwhile, the left wing and the far right wing Nazis share identitarian tribalism in common. And I think that's what's fueling a lot of identitarianism generally. The left wing insists on racial identitarianism through CRT and affirmative action and reparations pandering and BLM rhetoric. And the Nazis can use this as ammunition to show troubled loners prone to radicalization. Hey, look, identitarianism for them, but not for you. Isn't that unfair? I think the fundamental understanding that I think we all need to come to prevent horrific tragedies like this from happening is for us to exert social pressure to the best of our ability to treat people on the content of their character and not the color of their skin.
Oh, God damn it, Lactoid. All right, Leontis.
Yeah, so specifically to conservatism broadly, it's not very smart to just blame conservatism because, as it was reported in the alleged manifesto, the person was a fascist. And as we know, National Socialism and fascism is not conservatism.
Sorry.
But we do live in a very toxic political environment. It's a duopoly. It's dominated by a very corrupt establishment who, some people perceive them as only fulfilling the needs of the few. And in such a system like this, we have young men who are demoralized and they feel lost. They lack direction, purpose, and goals. And when these people search for direction, they become susceptible to extremist ideologies such as these crazy conspiracy theories of Great Replacement. But to be honest, they fall to these extremist views because these are the only people who are offering solutions to the problems that we face, and they are real problems that we face. We do have a declining birth rate broadly, but the extremists and the racists will blame, the Jews or have these conspiracy theories. We do have a problem with crime, but the racists and the conspiracy theorists will wrongly blame racial minorities. We are suffering from deindustrialization, job loss, but these conspiracy theorists, these extremists, will blame immigration. The extremist ideology is becoming mainstream because they're offering what these young lost men seek, which is answers. And all of us know that the solutions put forward by these extremists are not only logically fallible, but they're just extremely morally wrong, deplorable. But we can't forget or set aside the effects that people like Tucker Carlson and other propagandists put forward, whether it comes from Fox News, 4chan, Reddit, or any other kind of media platform. And while I can't, offer such an easy answer as the extremists can, I can say that the cause of these issues that we face and the people who stand in the way of the issues we face is not racial minorities. It's not these crazy conspiracy theories. It's not the Jews. It's the establishment politicians who refuse to solve these problems. And if they fail to fix these issues, we will see a rise in extremism. We will see a rise in violence, more senseless killing, more terrorism, proliferation of extremism, and we need to do something. Our establishment needs to do something, or the people need to do something.
Automatic pan.
Yeah, I think that you can blame some in the Republican Party. People like Paul Gosar come to mind. He put out a video, in that Attack on Titans video that he put out where he was like blood eyes looking at immigrants. I do think that there are Republicans who can take some responsibility, but the Republican Party as a whole, definitely not. I don't think Mitt Romney's out there inspiring any domestic terrorists. I think it's pretty exclusively a thing to the far right. While I don't agree with, average Republicans' immigration stance or their stance on the border, I think it's a far cry away from we need to, go out there and shoot minorities. Where is this coming from? It's coming from the radicals. How can we fix it? I actually don't know, but I'm hopeful that it's not going to get worse. I don't think, like Leontis said, that things are going to get a lot worse unless this stuff is addressed. I think that luckily, these extremists are not going to become, at least maybe I'm just being naive, but I don't see anywhere in the near future this movement taking steam and more people coming out and saying like, okay, we need a race war now. I don't think that declining birth rates, while they're a problem, I don't think it's a problem that the average person looks at and says, people need to do something about this now, or we just need to go out the street and start killing people. I think that most people see it as, what it is. It's a moderate problem. It could have some bad fiscal effects, going down in the future, but I don't think it's going to make most people genocidal. I think we should, blame the people who are at fault, not try to use it to target the entire Republican Party.
Doobie. When you unmute yourself.
I didn't realize I was muted. Thank you. So the views espoused by this guy's manifesto have literally nothing to do with Republican ideology. There's nothing to do with mainstream conservative thought at any level. Disliking immigration doesn't make you a Republican. Being a racist doesn't make you a Republican. I think it's true that some conservative pundits talk about what unchecked illegal immigration could do to this country culturally, but that's a totally valid concern, and I think any reasonable person would agree if we broke down that argument. I think the blame here lies with people that push racial identitarianism on all sides. I think this includes lefties who make excuses for using racial slurs toward white people or normalize casual racial discrimination toward white people. I think that denying the fact that white people will be a racial minority in the U.S. in the near future is just stupid. It's going to happen. What we should be doing is encouraging people to stop giving a fuck about it. Side point, we've had dozens of mass shootings in this country this year, right? Most of them weren't committed by white racists. Just last month, 10 people were shot in New York by black nationalists. Right, who was on his YouTube channel shitting on white people and Jews and all this kind of shit. Right, I think that what we're going to be seeing over the next few weeks is this story getting in a massive amount of attention because it can be used to push a racial narrative that further drives in this division that causes exactly this kind of shit. Right, I think we need to move past the race thing.
Okay. I love him.
I wholly reject.
I'm gonna say my thing, right? And then Fanatic, I'll go straight to you. Yeah, so fuck all this shit. I especially reject lactoid, right? But that's just on principle. But
it's because I'm white.
It's because you're white. The idea, and I'm not sure which one of you said it, that we specifically can't blame people like Tucker Carlson. There was literally a media analysis, done, right? Showing that, I believe within the past 6 months, Tucker referenced the Great Replacement theory 400 times in the show. That man never fucking stops. He never fucking stops, right? But you can say, okay, well, Tucker Carlson's an individual, right? You can't lay this the blame at conservatives at large. But indeed, I can, right? You can look at the rhetoric in the Republican Party in general. This is not a fringe theory anymore. Right? They aren't as brazen as the rest of these people, right? They aren't as vitriolic, but pieces of it pop in, right? Talking about how the browning of America, right? Talking about how white people are in danger, and it's up to these immigrants are changing the character of the nation, right? From the American natives, right? White people call themselves natives. The natives that live there. No, this is the entire Republican Party. It has been completely like instituted within the Republican Party. Like this rhetoric, right? Like it's almost indistinguishable. The only difference, right, is level of volume, the level of vitriol, right? That they unleash. But other than that, no. This is the Republican Party. Yes, you can say that an individual, oh, Mitt Romney is not like that. Well, first of all, if Mitt Romney, here's the thing, Mitt Romney may not say it, but he won't fight in his party. He won't fight in his party. Just like all the other Republicans, right? There are a lot of Republicans who know better, Republican politicians who know better, but they won't go against their base. As we've seen, the extreme cowardice there on the Republican side. So yes, I can absolutely 100% lay this at the feet of conservatives. At the state of conservatism in our country, right? Yes, I call them out. Every single one of them. So Fanatic,
can I respond to that, please?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. You want DB to respond? Okay.
Just really quick.
All right, DB, Fanatic.
I feel like there's some conflation here. Right. So again, when you said that Tucker Carlson's talked about the Great Replacement, right? So Great Replacement, this theory, quote unquote, it's bullshit. But that thing, right, is the idea that the racial the lessening of like the percentage like the white people in the US, right? So the fact that white people are going to be a minority in the future, that is happening because elites, Jews typically, are causing this to happen intentionally because they hate white people. Right, because they want to punish white people for whatever the fuck, right? Or they want like other races to come in and replace them because they can control them easier because they're like less intelligent than white people, whatever the fuck. That's what the Great Replacement theory is, right? So the demographic shifts, like racial demographic shifts, acknowledging that this is gonna happen and it is happening naturally just through immigration and people fucking each other. That is not Great Replacement. Right? So saying that Tucker Carlson acknowledges this, wait, please, and then says, hey, if we don't do this intelligently, if we do this too quickly, there will be cultural problems, and that's fucking true. We've seen this in Sweden, where the refugee crisis, and now they're saying, hey, we did this improperly. Too many came in at once, and now people are having trouble assimilating. All people like Tucker Carlson encourage is assimilation.
Bro, we have one of
No. Sorry. Don't worry. You'll get your turn, right? We got you in line. Sorry. No, this is. I'm not gonna let you launder Tucker Carlson's racism, right? Like his violation. That like, and he knows what he's doing, right? He's an intelligent racist. I'll give him that, right? He's a perfect racial propagandist. Yes, he is. But to say that, yeah, he's just talking about like, we gotta do this smart, letting in these other people. No, he specifically makes a point of demonizing immigrants, right? And this has been taken
illegal immigrants
by by all of them. By all of them.
He's not focused on
that's right. Nope. The brown ones, excuse me. Only the brown ones. Those are the ones he's got a problem. That's exactly the case. It's exactly the case. And to pretend like you don't recognize that, amazing, right? But we're gonna go to Fanatic, Eli, Bam. Don't worry, DB. We'll have more time for me to yell at you and tell you how wrong you are. Sproticus as well.
Hey,
but.
Okay.
So, I just wanted to say that I like 100% disagree with the idea that because people, I've seen these like talking points where it's like, yeah, we have these black mass shooters and they're like in the same situation, but the media's not covering them. But we obviously recognize that these black mass shooters aren't the thing. So they had a picture going around where they were like listed, like, see, here's 7 mass shooters that happened already this year, and no one's talking about those things the same. So then I went ahead and did my research on all of them, right? So Brandon Knight's situation started out as a gang altercation between like rival gangs, and he was like aiming at individuals. Smiley Martin, he was a Crip who shot a bunch of Bloods. Dondre Martin, there was a brawl at the thing, and then he ended up responding with some crazy violence. Timothy Rush, the same thing kind of happened. Someone else shot at him first.
Frank
and in
James.
the crowd, there was an altercation. And then with Frank James was like the one person that seemed like
that was last month.
Okay, you're right. Frank James was the one person who it seemed like he was politically motivated. So, like the idea that we're gonna make this argument that there's like this rash of like black mass shooters. No,
that's not what I said.
Okay, good. So then, as long as you're acknowledging, okay, I'm sorry, maybe might have misunderstood.
Yeah, so I'm just
okay.
What I'm saying is that mass shootings happen.
Let me finish. As long as you're acknowledging that, yes, that the black shootings that that are compared typically are not typically things that are politically motivated. They are not domestic terrorism. These are literal altercations between violent people involved in violent situations. That's very different than this person being politically motivated and trying to do his thing for political aims. Those things are widely different. Lactoid, the thing that you were saying earlier about, oh, well, you know, Republicans, they're not responsible. Like the CRT argument, the entire thing is about meritocracy and da-da-da-da-da. You can't argue for meritocracy when you recognize that the people are already pushed into different classes because of a lack of meritocracy. You can't tell people, hey, if you're black, we're going to do everything in our power to keep you down to a specific class. And then once we've established these classes based on race, now we'll say race is not important at all, and everybody should just be able to do whatever the frick they want to do. And now we have a meritocracy, because if that, but we'll have a meritocracy that's no longer race based, but it's kind of class based, and so then at that point, you know, whatever, everything should be fine. But if you've already created a class based on race, then that means now that anything that's class based will still be racist, right? And so that's what's happening there. And CRT is literally just the argument about like recognizing that laws, obviously in the history, have had a racial intersection, and that we should be looking at them and seeing how that impacted the people who are living today.
An actual based fanatic point.
All of them are.
Wait, hold on. So to be clear,
you can understand.
Hold on. So to be clear, right? So the reason I pointed out that there's been dozens of mass shootings this year, quote unquote mass shootings. What I just mean by that is just shootings where I think like more than 4 people have been shot in like one instance, right? So there have been dozens of them this year. So this idea that like there's like tons of mass shootings and it's all like white racist and shit is silly, right? Most mass shootings that happen are. Let me respond. Most mass shootings that happen are gang related.
No one said that. No one. No, sorry.
Secondly, please.
But Louis, that's exactly it. It's a straw man. We were talking about a politically motivated terroristic attack, and now you're trying to like obfuscate that by pointing out mass shootings, which obviously can be nebulously defined. It varies by state, and we obviously know it is very nebulous. It varies by state, and we obviously recognize that when we're talking about mass shootings of this nature, of this kind, it's domestic terrorism, which is the whole purpose of domestic terrorism, is specifically for political aim. So to look at this argument, we're talking about an individual who got into a mass shooting with a terroristic endeavor, with a political aim, and then compare that to random gang violence, again, not politically motivated by other individuals in violent scenarios. If you're not making that comparison, and this is the third time now that we're talking about this, and you're saying that there was no comparison, we all understood what we were talking about. I don't know why you're going down this straw man, because we obviously recognize from the very beginning that we're talking about terrorist attacks, what this Buffalo shooting was, and you're trying to like obfuscate by talking about gang violence.
We got it.
Not the same thing.
Doobie's going to respond.
You acknowledged earlier.
Oh, but he talked over me the entire time, so do I get to do the same thing back to him? Because I was talking and making my point, and he kept talking. So yeah, we did get it. And we get it. Or 2 people talking at once. So I want to repeat what I was saying and let me finish that while he shuts the hell up, and then we can let the Doobie talk. So let's run that back. Can we dial that back? Let me finish my point.
Okay, knock it off. Doobie, finish your point. Thank you.
Okay. So you acknowledge he's still yelling. I can't talk to him if he's yelling. Okay, so we acknowledged earlier that the subway shooter was a black nationalist who was motivated by political ideology and racism toward white people, right? White people and other groups, to be fair, right? So given that happened last fucking month, and we didn't have this massive conversation about why it happened and whose fault it was, and why it might be the Republicans' fault because they're racist, or the Democrats' fault because they're racist, or whatever the fuck, right? I'm wondering why you guys think that's the case. So why is it that when a white person does this sort of thing, which is disgusting, obviously, it gets this kind of like overblown fucking massive amount of media attention. When a black guy did it like literally last month, it did it. It just kind of was swept away. I think,
why are you moving?
Right? We didn't have this kind of discussion, and I wonder if you guys can acknowledge that this is because it's very convenient, especially coming up to the midterms, to have a narrative that they're like white nationalists motivated by the Republican Party that are murdering black people in the street.
No, that's not why it is.
Can I respond?
Eli, it's your turn anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and say a couple things. First off, I think Doobie, honestly, part of the reason why we did not, I mean, maybe there's some truth to what you're saying there, but I mean, with the subway shooter incident, like, I don't know, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking specifically about this person because it was much more, I feel like, I guess much more radical based on the fact he had a whole ass manifesto and what have you. I do think though that we do need to talk about, like, you know, black separatists. I do think that is something that does need to be talked about. I do think that. When you said though earlier about how it wasn't really racially motivated or anything,
That's not what I
kind
said.
of, huh?
It was obviously racially motivated.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
yeah, of course.
Okay, then then that's fine. Somebody else made a point about that they don't. Oh, I was gonna respond to Fanatic. There we go. So Fanatic, your idea that like the Great Replacement theory is like actually something that like is a legitimate thing. I'm gonna have to hardcore disagree with you. It is not something that is legitimate. Race, if in its entirety, is something that is completely made up, and that was completely made up to segregate and separate people. That's the whole reason why the concept of race, for the most part, was like acknowledged and like enforced. So, Great Replacement theory. I think we're giving too much credence to something that is just utter hogwash. Again, like sure, we could talk about Great Replacement theory. We could talk about it when a lot of the white people who are espousing the Great Replacement theory are also willing to talk about, and acknowledge white privilege. They're willing to acknowledge the fact that they benefit from a system of oppression in many cases. Yeah, then maybe we could talk about and the fact that like at one point white people went around and like colonized half the planet. Then maybe we could talk about Great Replacement theory, and then maybe there might be some credence to it. I'm joking, of course. There's never going to be any credence to it. I just don't see it like as an actual like thing that's happening. Technically, we're all being replaced. We all are. Everyone in the future is going to be a little bit, not necessarily black, not necessarily white. They're all going to be kind of like a beautiful like tan caramel sort of color. Yeah.
Fanatic, if you want to respond to that, that's fine. If not, we're going to Bam, Sproticus, Blacktoid, and then Pan.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the parts that I'm talking about the Great Replacement, specifically being true, it's not like because there's obviously there's a bunch of elements to it, but I'm specifically just referring to the element about the white people becoming like hyper minorities eventually around the globe. They already a hyper minority around the globe, but like becoming even more minorities around the globe around the fact that their replacement rates are incredibly low, and so then eventually their political power and their political aims might disappear, and they as an entire race will disappear, and that like race mixing and things like that are going to contribute towards it, which I think is all fine and dandy. I encourage every black man out there to have himself a mixed kid if you want to. But the point being, like, those elements are true. Like the idea that there's like Jews at the top that are controlling it, that stuff is nonsense. Like,
Yeah,
I would never argue with
I guess
that.
I
But
wanted you to clarify. Sorry.
yeah. But I think everyone else pretty much got that, and I think the like the idea. I really do want race to not matter as much. The only time where I really make strong appeals towards race is whenever I'm talking about like the ideas of reparations, or I'm talking about the fact that I have a very girthy penis. Outside of that, I never reference race.
Let's go to Bam.
Okay.
Yeah. So before I make my first point, I hadn't heard about the shooting, so I was like, oh my goodness, is Doobie onto something? I went and looked it up, and maybe a major distinction between these two shootings is the fact that no one died in the first one, which is crazy as it sounds. Like I think that's a factor that makes distinction on what we put on the front page. Like I don't think that necessarily it's because he's black, there's a racial motivation, but it seems like everything I've pointed to seems that there was no deaths in the Frank James shooting, which is a pretty notable distinction that you decided wasn't important to mention. I think the second point, was actually challenging Prime to a degree. Like that, just there's a broader issue with the way, like, with the rhetoric of a Great Replacement theory in general. But I was just speaking specifically to this shooter and their motivations. Like this, I don't think we have any reason to not address specifically, like, to not believe what the shooter put in the manifesto, because everything else seems to line up with the actions he took, and his motivations particularly don't seem to come from that. Just more so a general he seems to be a person that's very, very easily radicalized. At 12, he was a communist. At like 16, he was like a far right, whatever. Like he settled in as a national socialist, which is Nazi. And I think that there's a larger problem with people lacking nuance and being drawn to follow populism into one extreme to the other.
So
wait, Bam, can I ask you
So now that it's my turn. Oh,
Because I think it's really weird to say that, because I don't believe that if none of these people had died, right, in the Buffalo shooting, it wouldn't still be a major news story, and we wouldn't still be having this exact same discussion. So I think it's a little weird to say he shot 10 people. Right? I think if there's a discussion to be had about a guy motivated by racial animus going out and attempting to kill people at random for the way they look, I think shooting 10 people is enough to generate that conversation.
I don't think so.
Hey, Doobie, do you think which do you think is more common? Would you say that? Do you think it would be accurate to say that there's probably like a 9 or 10 to 1 ratio of these racial attacks with racial animus that are happening in this country, like for white people versus black people? Do you think that that's realistic?
Hold on. So these specific kind of attacks, or are you talking about like just like
yes, the question
racial
that I just
attacks
asked
in
you.
general?
The question that I just asked
that really depends. If you consider like Jewish people to be white, it's actually much more common that black people enact like racial violence, right? But I don't think that's
hold on, wait. So you're saying black people are disproportionately like targeting Jews specifically with racial violence?
Political.
Yeah. Actually, last year we hold on.
Hey,
we're talking about mass shootings.
Prime, can Fnatic and Doobie have a cage match? That way I can go after that.
Oh my god. Hold on. And we just had like what 2 years, like a year and a half
being dishonest.
No, I'm not being dishonest. We just had like a year and a half of BLM shit where white people were specifically targeted in many instances. Hundreds of attacks across the country.
By Antifa?
No, not by Antifa. By black people who are motivated by racial animus for white people.
We obviously
all over the fucking country.
No, we already link a single source to that.
Dozens of videos of this happening.
We got to move along. So you can have a quick response, Fnatic, but we got to move along. We got a bunch of people.
First off, 93% of all BLM riots BLM marches were peaceful. Secondly, the vast majority of these cases were indiscriminate attacks against people who were like, AKA defending property or things like that. Like the vast majority, there were no manifestos or any other things that were there to indicate that these things were racially motivated. Of course, we do recognize that like the vast majority of hate crimes are specifically against black people within this country. We have all of the data to suggest this from an overwhelming disproportionate majority, and the vast majority of perpetrators of hate crimes are white people. So the idea, we have actual FBI statistical data on this. So the idea that we could say that there's any equivalence whatsoever from black racially motivated shooting attacks and white racially motivated shooting attacks is absolutely
hold on, but it's absolutely overrepresented. Hold on to it. We gotta move on, right? And just quickly to Bam, right? Like, and to everyone else, I know the shooter said in his manifesto that he was not influenced by cable news. One, that's not the only conservative media there is, but two, like Tucker Carlson is a hero of the far right, of the racist far right. So like his ideas are always being trickled down there, right? In fact, some of their ideas trickle up, like from 8chan and shit, right? Like we've seen that. We can see the movement of these ideas. They have been tracked by researchers, so they trickle up to Tucker Carlson. Sometimes his they'll show clips of him, right? They'll be on these forums. So yeah, he doesn't watch cable news because he's not fucking 80. Sure, great. That doesn't mean that he wasn't influenced by that. But anyway, Sproticus.
Okay. So you know why I don't give a fuck, why I don't care that the white race is going away, because the white race is fucking made up. Irish and Italians weren't considered white until fairly recently, historically talking about. And still some people don't even consider Italians white nowadays. So I don't think that I honestly don't give a fuck that the white race is going away. People are gonna love who they're gonna love, and they're gonna babies with who they want to make babies with. This is not. I don't get why this is controversial whatsoever. Now, to go towards can we lay this at the feet of the Republicans? I would argue no. Even with the manifesto, the shooter, I'm not going to mention his name, but he said, quote unquote, no, conservatism is corporatism in disguise. I want no part of it. He has completely denounced conservatism. He says conservatism is disgusting to him. And he said that like conservatism is awful. I don't know why you can say that conservatism is to lay blame to this when he's completely denounced the entire idea.
Well, I'll answer that. It's simple, right? It doesn't matter that he has laid the idea of conservatism itself, right, to rest. Right? That's how I feel. So it actually doesn't matter. the places that he circulates in, what he ingests, right, and the side of the political spectrum that has been pushing these ideas, right? That's all the right. That's where you get all these things, right? And the people that he says that inspired him, right? All far right individuals, right? And their language, right, infiltrates the mainstream right. They can pretend that they're somehow separate from these things, right? That there is some sort of firewall there, but it doesn't exist. We can see that it doesn't exist, right? And U.S. Republican politicians have had no problem, like literally the entire history, they've had no problem flirting with racism. Like this is the party of the fucking Southern strategy. Let's not forget, right? Where they explicitly said we are going to lean into racial animus to win. Right. So to say that this party doesn't have anything to do with it.
Do you consider me on the right? Prime, do you consider me on the right?
I'm not talking about individuals, okay? So like I'm not gonna say that you, Sprouticus, are responsible for that, right? Like, and I said that at the very start.
I'm gonna say it.
At the fair enough. I said that at the very first statement was that I don't think it's you can lead it at individuals. But the conservative party as a whole and conservatives as a whole, right? The rhetoric that's being pushed there, that it's acceptable, that doesn't get any pushback from most individuals, right? There's some I know, like my man Eucharist. He's a good guy, right? Like if he had heard any of this nonsense, I guarantee he's pushing it back. He's a conservative. He's a Republican, and I guarantee you that he will. So I can find individuals that are like this, but let's not forget. A third of the Republican Party has lost its fucking mind. Lost its fucking mind with the theories that it believes, right? QAnon has infested them.
So, Prime, like,
and they believe that the Democratic Party is like raping children and is trying to replace them with immigrants. Like this is what, like, you can take, there are polls of this showing what Republicans believe. This is what they believe. Right, not all of them, obviously.
Like, do you understand? Like, you understand though that Italy was literally the Browning of Europe. It was the whole one drop theory. That people didn't consider Italians white because they were so close to Africa and they had at least one drop of black in them. Like it's the whole one drop theory in Europe. What I'm saying is that the white race is 100% made up, and I'm also saying that this person is a fucking, like, he needs to rot like underneath the fucking jail. He's a piece of shit. But I do not think that conservatism as a whole has brought him to this. I think it's 4chan. I think it's the far right, which I wouldn't even consider conservatism.
Of course.
And what is
there's somehow a break there.
You can say that you don't consider it to be conservatism.
We gotta move. Lactoid, problematic pan. They've been waiting. Lactoid, problematic pan. Have been waiting. Excuse me. They've been waiting. Lactoid, problematic pan. Leontis, right? And then we go with you, Eli.
Okay, so I am very sorry if the conversation has moved on, but there were some statements said that I knew were false, but I wanted to get the exact numbers just so I had them correctly. Mother Jones magazine has taken information down to study mass shootings, right? So they've assembled a database from 1982 to 2022. This is data regarding mass shootings that are unrelated to traditionally conventionally motivated crimes such as armed robbery or gang violence, right? These are not, the research focuses on, I'm reading here, quote, indiscriminate rampages in public places resulting in 4 or more victims killed by the attacker. What the data shows is actually contrary to what Fanatic was arguing, and I think what the mainstream news does present, right? Of the mass shooters between 1982 and 2022, 16.4% of those shooters were black, which is overrepresented considering that 13.4% of the population is black. And only 50% of shooters were white, which again is underrepresented considering that 61.6% of the US population is white. He's also wrong when we're talking about hate crimes, right? According to the most recent hate crime statistics from the FBI, this is .gov, 55.1% of hate crime perpetrators were white, 21.2% were black. Again, significant overrepresentation among black people, significantly underrepresentation among white people. So just the stats here are just wrong, and to Doobie's point, don't reflect what I think the mainstream media does portray of the stereotype of the white mass shooter and kind of like the white lone wolf psychopath.
I don't know who you're debunking. Wait, he literally addressed me. Can I respond to that, please? Really
Well, I got a part that
my statistics that I was.
I have a part.
I didn't hear him address you. I literally didn't.
I have a part that addresses you even more if you want to wait, but we can.
Can we go, but instead of gish galloping, how about I address the first point that you're talking about?
Sure.
So the very first thing that you're as far as like the mass shooters, right? Again, the reason why that's so hard to like even consider is because of the fact that mass shootings are going to be its definition varies wildly depending on like which state you're in. And then secondly, when it comes to like determining the motivations for mass shootings, from African Americans, very often it's really hard to get those things labeled down because there's almost zero cooperation with the police. So in these situations, even if it's gang related or whatever, it's hard to be able to say, oh, this was like specifically it. Even with the ones that I was reading off earlier, if you look at almost all of the news articles, you'll have to like search through them to find the one that actually admits like, hey, this is what happened, which led to this altercation. Because all they do is that, oh, shooting happened, X amount of people were dead. They're not writing manifestos before these shootings. So a lot of times it can be like, yes, it can be a mass shooting and you can say it happened. There was a black person there and he shot indiscriminately into a crowd, but they won't mention the fact that there was an altercation. Doesn't necessarily have to be gang violence. There was an altercation that happened at that club, which led to this mass shooting. There's a very difference between those and terroristic, racially motivated attacks. And that's what we were talking about. Racially motivated attacks. So find me anything that says that black people contribute to a large portion of those, and that's just not actually true. And then, what was the other thing that you were talking about? You mentioned the statistics on that. And there was one other thing.
I want to respond to that. Right?
You mentioned both of them. I want to address both of them first, and then you can respond to whichever one you want. What was the other one?
The fact that black people are also disproportionately
hate crime things. The hate crime statistics. What I did say was that black people were overly represented, like as far as being the victims of hate crimes. I don't know why you would say that. That would
perpetrator.
No, but what I said was black people are overly represented for victims of hate crimes. That's what I said. That was the statement that I made. Hold on. That was the statement that I was making. Did you have statistics tabloid or whatever your name is, lactoid? I'm sorry. That contradicted that.
Can you drop your statistics in the?
No, I'm not gonna waste my time doing that. Do your own research. Lactoid, did you were doing the research? Did you find statistics that contradicted that statement?
No, that specific statement, no. I was simply referring to...
That was my statement, and that was the statement that I made. So if you didn't find any statistics, you did all of this research, I don't know what for, because the statement I was making is that blacks are overly represented as far as victims of hate crimes, and the largest perpetrators of hate crimes are white people. Those were the two statements that I made.
Okay, so the largest perpetrator or proportion is white people or perpetrators is what you said, right?
I didn't say anything about proportion. I just said the largest amount of perpetrators of hate crimes are white people. I wouldn't talk about proportion when it comes to things like hate crimes, because you only want to start really you normally focus on proportions for things that are normalized or normative. You wouldn't be talking about proportions of hate crimes, because we're not just talking about like proportions of the relative population, because these are things that are not normative. That's why.
Right. Well, I'll go through and point out my disagreements then. Like you said, I could. Right. So, you can disagree with the data analysis that was done by Mother Jones. You don't seem to actually have any evidence to contradict this. You're simply saying that their evidence is bad because sometimes in the articles it's not necessarily clear. They have a methodology in which they come to the conclusion that these are not related to altercations or gang-related violence.
It didn't have to be gang-related. It had to be gang-related.
Or altercations. Listen. Or altercations, right? This is the data that's compiled here. Now you can say, well, their data just sucks because potentially the data set could be wrong. And I admit, right? I guess it's true that every study their data set could be missing something hidden in the weeds that people just don't fucking see, okay? And if you have an actual criticism of their methodology, I encourage you to go and take a look at the study, and maybe you can actually come up with an evidence-based criticism of what they're compiling. But from the evidence they have compiled, it is just blatantly true that in terms of non-altercation, non-gang related, mass rampaging shootings, black people are overrepresented and white people are underrepresented. This goes against the meaning.
But that wasn't what we were talking about. That
this
wasn't what we
goes
were
ag-
talking about.
Hold on. Well, maybe this is a lot. Maybe this is a lot to Doobie's credit then. Okay, maybe this isn't exactly against everything that you've been saying.
Because
but
my
this
statement
does go.
was
This
very
does go.
specific. So you're strawmanning. You brought
Okay.
up data on a strawman while not addressing my
Mhm.
point. I posted the statistics right there for you inside of the freaking chat. Somebody in my chat happened to provide it for me.
All right.
Black people are hyper overrepresented when it comes to hate crimes. This is by the freaking justice.gov. You can look at the
I didn't
statistics.
challenge
These are
that.
very, very well. Okay, so then if you did know that, that was the original statement I made. I don't know why you went looking for details
my
or for
God.
research for a straw man, because the point,
so-
the statement that I
So
made.
you interrupted me.
The statement that I made was something that was completely verified. I literally provided sources for it. You went and did research to look up something that had nothing to do with what I was talking about, something completely extraneous, and now you're like wanting to go on and defend this thing that I wasn't even talking about. So my original points still stand. Blacks are overrepresented by hate crimes. I mean, as victims of hate crimes. Whites are the majority of hate crimes committed in this country, which is not something normative. So we wouldn't be talking about proportions. So all of these things are all very, very, very true.
Yeah.
Back to it.
And I
Why would you
so
use
I
proportions for the first, but not the
What was the
second?
point?
thank you.
I wasn't
Wait.
proportions.
Fanatic, it's my turn to talk.
Back to it. It's like to his turn to talk.
Can I ask?
Yeah,
It's
Jesus
It's like to,
Christ.
oh, sorry,
No,
sorry.
wait.
Back to it, please.
Jesus, yeah, it's like, okay. So I already addressed the shooting thing. I think that speaks for itself. I think that this does kind of show a imbalance in the news narrative, right? Now, when we talked about hate crimes, I do think it's telling that you use proportion for the first statistic and that you don't use proportion for the second
I
statistic.
wasn't talking about proportions.
Well, in the first one you were. Like, black people are
wasn't.
just, hold on, okay. Stop interrupting me because you get so angry when anybody interrupts you. Okay, so when we're talking about disproportionate, like victims, like black people are disproportionately victims of hate crime. Yeah, that's true. Disproportionately, right? We're using the term disproportionately.
I didn't.
However,
use the word disproportionate.
Hey, let him finish. Let him finish, please.
okay.
Back to it.
And then when we're talking about perpetrators, now we're talking about the majority, right? Raw majorities in a country when we're talking about like population groups is irrelevant. Who the fuck cares about like raw majority? We're talking about proportions here, and proportionally, right? In terms of hate crimes, it's just not true that white people are overrepresented. White people are underrepresented in committing hate crimes. Black people are overrepresented committing hate crimes. This is just factually true. Okay,
So you're using
the facts.
proportions when we're talking about what you only use proportions when you're talking about something normative, and we're not talking about something normative. One number, I mean that's the first.
What do you mean by
statement.
normative?
Number two, normative means something that is literally expected. Nick, do you not know what the word normative means? I think normal occurrences that are literally expected to be outcomes. Like that's what normative is. What?
I'll use normative.
Oh,
No,
maybe-
it's just
maybe-
no,
Earlier.
you're
That's
wrong.
not how you used the word earlier.
That's
Like,
not
what
how
are
you
you
use it. It's establishing,
Let me
relating
see.
to, or deriving from a standard or norm, especially behavior.
That's what I
Why
just
are you
said.
correcting me?
No. That's literally what I just said. What are you talking about? Because I didn't use the exact definitions. Do you not understand the words that you just read? What I just said was like the things that we expect, the normal outcomes, the normal things that what? What are you talking about?
The thing we expected the normal outcomes. What are you talking about?
Well, okay.
So when we say disproportionate, we're talking as a proportion of their
I'll get it myself.
population. It is disproportionate.
So look, here it is. So when we're talking about norms of relating to, this is a definition from Merriam-Webster, since we're going here because you're playing like you don't understand, of relating to or determining norms or standards. So when you start talking about things like hate crimes, which are not the majority of crimes, they are not the norm, they are not the standard, then using proportions in these situations, that's like an appeal to something that's not normative. You don't use proportions when you're talking about things that aren't
Then
normative.
why did you use the word disproportionate?
That's insane.
I wasn't using proportions when I was talking
You
about
said
black people.
disproportionate.
I said black people were overrepresented, meaning that like we are like the
You said they were
majority.
disproportionately.
I
they
said
were- the victims of hate crime.
Overrepresented means disproportionate.
it can also mean disproportionate. It can
That's what
also
you
just
meant.
mean it can
Oh my
also
God.
it can also mean the majority. I'm sorry if you guys have limited vocabulary.
No, it
You
doesn't.
said you used the word
You
disproportionate.
just didn't understand what normative meant after you read the definition.
You
But
used the word disproportionately.
what I am
That's honest about it.
God.
Disproportionate would
I used to think you were
directly
just
affect
angry.
What I'm
Okay,
saying
okay.
now is that you cannot use the word normative when you're talking about non-normative things, so you shouldn't be referring to proportions. And when I'm saying that white people are overrepresented,
Disproportionate literally
not what you
directs
said.
different
What I'm
words
talking
to
about-
proportions.
Also,
about-
no hate
I'm
crimes are
talking about
normative in that.
crimes.
That's
When
for
I am talking about hate crimes, and specifically their occurrence, I was using the raw numbers and just saying that black people were the majority. We were the majority of the hate crimes. We're more than the majority of the hate crimes. So if that's the case, then that sounds like, and white people were like the majority of the perpetrators. That's what I was talking about.
So, Lactoid, finish up your point. I want to get to Pan and Leontis, Eli.
Sure.
maybe.
You're talking about proportions.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's pretty clear what just happened. I mean, you're talking about, just because we're talking about like an isolated statistic that is, like, I agree, like hate crime isn't all crime. That doesn't mean like disproportionate or normative aren't statements that can apply or not apply to that particular category of crime measurement. Okay, when we're talking about disproportionate, we're talking about like we're comparing the amount of crimes and we're comparing that to the population of that specific demographic. In terms of white people, according to the statistics of hate crimes, right? It appears, maybe I was misinterpreting everything you were saying, but it appears like the narrative that was being pushed forward is that, we have the data on this. This is white people doing this. White people are crazy, and I just don't think the numbers reflect that in either mass shootings or hate crimes. I also, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, but we kind of got caught up on that, is, back to the reparations thing, right? I think talking about reparations is a great way to polarize people. Tell a poor white man he doesn't get money when a rich black person does. You're talking about it being related to class. If it's entirely based on class, we're no longer talking about reparations. We're talking about welfare, right?
I wasn't saying that. But you're strawmanning me from the very beginning.
All right, then you can disagree after. You can disagree after. How about that?
Why do you always strawman first?
Hey, whoa.
No one here thinks that. Okay, of the other 8 people in the room, does anybody think that I think reparations should be based on class? No one thinks that. You're strawmanning. Everyone sees it. Beauty knows it. Pan knows it. Pod knows it. Freaking Bam knows it. Everyone knows that.
You don't even know what he said.
He literally just said the words. He literally said the words verbatim. So if you're saying reparations are based on class, then, and I never said that.
I didn't say that.
And no one thinks I said that. You said those words. Blacktoy just said those words verbatim.
Wait. Angry. Just let him finish his statement.
He said those words verbatim, did he not? Did he say those words verbatim, yes or no?
Hey, knock it off. I want to hear from Blacktoy.
I'm not listening to him anymore. I'm just going to mute him too. Okay. I'm not doing it.
So you can mute.
So he did say that.
I used to think you were just angry, but you're also not, a good listener, right? So I know what I said because I'm reading off of a notepad in which I literally wrote this down, okay? I did not say that. I'm reading off the notepad. I know what I said, okay? What I said is I think talking about reparations is a great way to polarize people. Tell a poor white man he doesn't get money when a rich black person does. If it's entirely based on class, it's no longer reparations, it's welfare, right? So if we're basing like giving money on like poverty, which is what you were saying was linked with race before. Maybe you're going to deny it now, but I'll just let the VOD speak to that, right? Now, when the motivation is to lift up poor people, this is no longer reparations. This is welfare. When you give a rich black person money because of a sorry, this is no longer welfare. This is just purely reparations. Race and class are not inherently linked. The majority of black people do not live in poverty, and welfare does, because a higher percentage of black people live in poverty, welfare does have a disproportionately beneficial effect for black people because of the high rates of poverty. And that's statistically true, but that extra welfare that black people get has nothing to do with reparations, right? It's entirely to do based on lifting up the poor people, which appeared to be your argument before for reparations. Like black people were put down, we need reparations to come back up and like play in this sort of class-based economic system. If that's the case, just base it off of class. Why are you bothering with like giving rich black people money and not giving poor white people money? It doesn't make any sense. It's inherently contradictory. I think that people are Americans and are individuals with all the rights that everyone else has, and I think we should focus on that.
Okay, let's go to Pan. It's been waiting. Then Leontis and Eli, and then Doobie. Ralph?
Yeah, I didn't know that this was going to be a panel about reparations or even race in general. I'm pretty sure
doesn't have to be.
The main part of the question. I'm aware.
Wait, but race was
I was throwing shade. Hold up, shut. Okay, that's not my actual point. My actual point is that what I think is the interesting discussion here is whether or not right-wing political violence exceeds left-wing political violence, not whether white violence exceeds black violence. It seems like there are statistics out there. We can go look that up on our own time. We can go through the stats, blah blah blah. But I think it's pretty clear, first of all, that the right is the far right, I should say, is very disproportionate when it comes to political violence. It's true that there are occasions, black nationalists might come on and do a shooting. However, there's not a large political force behind black nationalism. I hate to say it, but they kind of only exist on the internet. Black nationalism is nowhere near as mainstream a threat as something like Tucker Carlson conservatism or populism. Second of all, I wanted to say to Prime was talking about the Republican Party as a whole is responsible. As a whole, well, I don't think you can call the Republican Party a whole. In the same way, you can't compare or call Democrat Party a whole. You wouldn't say that Joe Manchin and fucking AOC are the same person. Or, well, obviously not the same person, but have the same similar ideology. You wouldn't blame one for the other's actions. And I don't understand why you can see that Democrats aren't a whole, but you insist on making the Republican Party a whole when there's many I disagree with you completely that the part of the Republican Party that are more moderates, I don't think at all that they are responsible for this crime or would support this crime.
I don't know why you can't understand, even though I've said many times that like I'm not focusing on individuals. So if I was talking about the Democratic Party, I do blame the Democratic Party as a whole for many things, right? But I can recognize that there are individuals who break that trend. So I can what I mean by that, and maybe it's unclear, so I'll accept that. That the rhetoric that is in the mainstream, right? The dominant figures, right? How the rhetoric that is repeated among the rank and file, right? Meaning the individuals, the voters, right? That's been absorbed and that's repeated back out, right? We can actually see this. There are many videos, right? I'm not making this shit up, right? You can go down many videos, people going to Trump rallies, the whole MAGA movement, right? It's based off this. They voted in a person who came down the fucking golden staircase and said that Mexico was sending like drugs and rapists or something like that, right? Rapists and murderers. I forget which one, right? Some racist variant of that, right? Like they voted that guy in. This rhetoric isn't fringe, right? People like to throw it off onto the side. Oh, this is not on the Republican Party. No, the Republican Party is somehow better than this. Yeah, they push policies nonstop that these people, these far right individuals, would love. Right, these white nationalists, they're big fans of the Republican Party, right? There's a reason.
They're not, though. White nationalists are not a fan of the Republican Party. Like people like
they
white
are.
nationalists like Richard Spencer hate fucking Republicans.
Richard Spencer. Yeah, sure. But who are they?
No,
sorry,
do hate,
if they're going to vote,
first of all, if they're
going to vote, if a racist person, right, a person who does not like minorities, is going to vote for anyone, who are they going to vote for? Are they going to vote for Obama? Or are they going to vote for Trump?
I'm not.
Are they going to vote for Joe Biden? Or are they going to vote for Trump?
I mean, they're probably not going to vote because they hate both. But they would.
No, that's not the same. That's not. No. Don't dodge the question. Don't dodge the question.
I didn't dodge the question. I said specifically they will vote for Trump over Obama if they had to. However,
or Joe Biden, or Joe Biden.
Or Joe Biden doesn't.
Exactly. Yes. Why? Why do they do that? No. Why do they do that? Let's focus on
because
why.
It's closer to the ideas than the left side. Yes.
Yeah. And what ideas? And what ideas are those? Yes. What ideas are those?
Anti-immigration is a lot closer to killing immigrants than pro-immigration.
Yeah.
However, that's not to say that being anti-immigration is the same as being pro-killing.
No. It's not just anti-immigration.
If our argument is, are the Republicans anti-immigration? Do they put hateful talking points? Maybe.
Yes.
I'm not here to disagree.
All the time.
Right?
Okay.
My point is that there's a far cry from being like, I guess, discriminatory and shit like this, and advocating for like the murder and genocide of people and supporting all this stuff. You have to get.
Do you know what a dog whistle is?
Yeah, I'm aware of what a dog whistle is.
Would you not say that the Republican Party always does dog whistles?
No.
Do you think they're dog whistling about killing all immigrants, or do you think they're dog whistling about stuff like building a wall or deporting immigrants?
Do you understand the spectrum? Do you understand the spectrum? Do you understand that you can start at one end of the spectrum and move to the other end of the spectrum, right? So yes, like Mitch McConnell isn't talking about exterminating minorities. I get that. You don't have to tell me that, all right? Understood. But his party, with all its rhetoric and all its policies that it pushes all the fucking time, right? And not just now, not just like a recent thing, like, oh, this is a turn of events, right? No, from decades ago. Right? Once they decided that they lost the black vote and didn't give a shit about it anymore, right? Then they decided, yeah, we're going to lean into this. This is the party of the Southern strategy, and it's never stopped being the party of the Southern strategy. So to pretend like, oh, well, they're not specifically saying, they're not specifically saying that the calling for genocide, a dumb fucking point. Yeah, they're not specifically.
It's not.
Why isn't? You can't say these are the same thing, right? Donald Trump didn't say to murder all Mexicans. He just called them rapists and murderers themselves. But he didn't say that we should like put them in camps, or well, actually, he did put them in camps, but like he didn't say that we should put them in ovens. No, so there's no reason. I can't see how this rhetoric is related. This is a dumb fuck point. You're better than this.
Wait,
You're
Prime,
better than
Prime,
that.
are you saying?
Also,
Prime, are you saying that?
Fucking
I
embarrassing.
would agree that
This is ridiculous.
Green
Republicans
is a
don't
Republican
want mainstream
who
Republicans
was
to
at.
lead to the far right. They don't want that because they lose power, right? If
Sorry,
the
what did you
main-
say?
like,
What was the
if
first thing you
mainstream-
said?
If moderate mainstream Republicans
Can I add
don't
something?
want people to go to the
No,
far
no,
right
you
because
can't.
they lose
When you get to
political
when I
power.
get to you. Sorry,
Oh,
Pam, please.
Mainstream Republicans will lose political power if Republicans become far right. They have a vested interest in stopping people from becoming far right. Like, yes, it's true that their ideologies are closer on a spectrum, but that doesn't mean that they're driving people to that spectrum. In fact, they're actually trying to drive people away from that spectrum because if the white nationalists come in power, the Republicans, they lose too, right?
Hold on. The white.
idea,
How do they
40 of them are
lose?
white.
How did-
I think the average Republican voter does not like white nationalism. Now, maybe that's a hot take, but I will stand by that and say that maybe psychologically I've been fooled deep down. Average Republican Party voter actually does want
as the average Republican, right? Are they a white nationalist? They will say no, right? But they'll fucking vote for one, correct? Correct.
Yes.
Like, will they vote
no,
for
I
a
don't
person
think it-
who's
I don't
not,
think they would
sorry,
vote
well,
for
not white
these-
nationalists, excuse me, white supremacists. Will they not vote for white supremacists? Are you
I
telling
don't
me they
think
won't
would
vote for white
someone
supremacists?
like Richard Spencer. Probably
No. Hold on. Dude, what's Richard Spencer? You can try to use him, right, as your cover, but I'm not gonna fucking let you. Donald Trump, was he a white supremacist, right? And his rhetoric
No, he's
and
just
his
a racist.
actions. Oh, he's just a racist. Great, amazing, done with this. Leon, your turn.
Well, you can't
No,
just
I'm sorry.
write that
You
off.
said
Racism
you
is
said a
a
dumb
far
fuck
way
thing,
from fucking
and
genocide.
no,
It's
you
not a dumb
got
thing. We're
it.
here
You
to
got
say,
it. Good.
does the
Good
Republican
work.
Party
Leontes,
advocate for genocide? No, the answer is no,
go
and you
ahead.
have
Oh,
to agree.
hey, shut up. Leontes.
All right. Well, we kind of strayed away from the topic, so I guess to
That was the topic.
yeah, but to rewind and then reset a little bit, I don't have a personal issue with attributing partial blame to these individuals who peddle these extremist conspiracy theories. I just don't think that's, or political parties. But I just don't find that particularly useful. And I think it's kind of shallow to do so. And it just indicates you're trying to score cheap political points. And I more sympathize with Pan, who's getting a little closer, I think, to the root, which is the difference between left and right-wing violence. But I don't think that necessarily goes deep enough. I think whether you want to attribute the radicalization to right-wing Tucker Carlson, right-wing 4chan, left-wing Reddit, you're still not recognizing the root causes, which are the problems that we face, that the establishment fails to address and fails to attempt to solve.
Yeah, but hold on, really quickly. Would you say that the problems are more in line with which party? I guess. So in other words, the problems that these great replacement theorists believe that they're facing, which party are they more disgruntled at that they believe, or do they expect to be the party that would actually help them? Because I guess the way of saying it is for when we look at reparations, we obviously recognize that reparations would never come from the racist Republican Party, but we do have the mentality that okay, we expect that the Democrats are always trying to echo our causes and pretending as if they have our backs. So then it causes us to be disgruntled with that party because that's the party we expect to be on our side. We expect the other party to be our opposition. And so in the same way, would you not say that the alt-right people are the ones that are saying specifically that they expect the Republicans to have their back and to fight for their causes and that they're not doing enough?
Yeah, they would broadly be closer, but I reject that conspiracy theory outright. And I think, and that's not really the problem I was referring to. I was referring specifically just to declining the collapse of our birth rate in general, not specifically when it comes to race or Jewish conspiracy theories. That's not the problems I'm talking about, because I don't see that as a problem. I see the decline in birth rate itself as the problem that no one is addressing except for these extremists and for these people who, Republicans or whoever who blames it on racial things.
Hold on, but I think that doesn't make any sense because these people literally think the Republican Party is controlled by the Jews in Israel. So yeah, I guess the Republicans are anti-illegal immigration, so that makes them closer to the absolutely no immigration from non-whites ever position, but that doesn't make them the party of white nationalists. Right?
I'm not
These
saying it
people.
is a problem.
Well, hold on. Yeah, Fanatic. I'm not saying you're saying this, but I think that these people will literally say that Trump was he had Jared Kushner married to his daughter. He's a Jew, and because of that, he was obviously corrupted by the Jews. And Trump went to Israel and kissed the wall, so he's a Jew. Yada yada. Right. So this is what they don't support these people whatsoever fucking ever. They might vote for them if they because they're like totally opposed to all immigration, and Republicans seem to be more concerned with illegal immigration than the Democrats. Sometimes you have to keep in mind that Obama deported way more fucking illegal immigrants than Bush ever did, right? And I think it's a good thing, by the way. But to say that, hey, the Republican Party is anti-illegal immigration, therefore, that's the Nazi Party, it's really silly, I think. I think it's really dishonest.
No one's saying that there's a Nazi Party because of that. We're only saying that,
Well, we're like blaming them for these fucking crazy Nazis.
No, we're not blaming them for these Nazis. Again, these are all straw men. What we're doing from the very beginning is we're saying that. Well, at least I can't speak for everybody else. Don't say yeah, you were, nigga. I know what I'm saying. What I've been saying from the point of this topic is what I've been saying from the very beginning has been specifically that their views are more aligned with what can be found in the Republican Party. Not saying that these are the typical Republican Party views, is that there is significantly more overlap between them and Republicans. That's what I'm saying.
But this is only true if you
that's not what Prime's saying.
Please, 1 second. But this is only true if you ignore every other position they have, right? These people are fascists. They're not fucking conservative libertarian.
That's more likely to be found in the Republican Party.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's true at all. I think big government thinking. A lot of these people support massive social programs for white people specifically. By the way, they're not conservative, libertarian, or Republican types.
Leontis, I want to make sure you got everything because you've been waiting the longest, absolutely the longest. So I want to make sure you are done.
Right. Well, I mean, just to respond to the Fanatic, I mean, sure, there are similarities, but if you speak to these people, if you listen to them, the fascists, the National Socialists, they are not aligned with mainstream corporatist conservatism. Just on its face.
Jesus,
and that's fair.
Can no one understand a word that's coming out of my mouth? Are you niggas really going to be this dense? I'm not saying that they're fully aligned. What I am saying is that they're going to have more values associated with the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. That's what I'm saying. While there is more overlap with the Republican Party than the Democratic Party, and an obviously partisan country. That's what I'm saying.
Hold on, but
does anyone disagree with those statements?
I disagree. I disagree. I think it's true if all you're
Can we disagree with that in a minute?
I think that's true if all you're doing is looking at the views on immigration or non-whites coming to the country, but they have a ton of other belief systems that would line up more with the Democrats. These people are like neither on either side.
Bam is right. I gotta let Bam in. Bam. So we'll go to Bam Lactoid. Bam Lactoid. Spartacus Pan.
Okay. Yeah. I think what Fanatic's saying is objectively true. There is some level of, like, there's obviously, with there being two political parties in the country, there's going to be more of an overlap on one side or the other. It's the same reason they call Joe Biden a socialist, because you can look at socialists and communists, and though they may hate Democrats, there's enough overlap between these two people that, like, you can generally consider them the left-leaning or right-leaning, etc. So while that's being true, I think it's dishonest to push this as the to put this as the crux, the big issue we need to be solving. Two things in particular I think need to be solved, and then there's something else I want to respond to. But two things in particular that need to be solved is, I think the biggest issue is actually socialization. I don't believe it's like the politics of a person. I believe it's basically putting people in community with each other. I looked up the area he was from. It's like a 90% white county, 91% white county, and it does seem to be some relationship to dehumanization. Like, you can dehumanize people you don't like share spaces with, and the more people you're forced to share spaces with, it seems to be like, oh, okay, these are humans, they have feelings there. Like, you're less likely to believe the things that you are on the internet about these groups. And so that's number one. And number two, which is something I said earlier, is political extremism in general. If we like the country itself, and I hate making these points because it sounds so like milk toast, but like the country itself is in a weird place. I'm not going to say the most divisive it's ever been, because obviously we fought a war in this country, like niggas died for it. But we're in a very particularly divisive time in our politics that I think is going to lead people to thinking it's okay to fall into these extremes. Like I said, he was radicalized from the age of 12. Again, the people who watch paces like this, and I'm not saying Prime specifically, but just people who are on Twitch, on 4chan, on these types of sites, are like really, really young children that are easily impressionable by the things they hear because they don't necessarily have the ability to properly navigate it. So I think instead of like, if we're really trying to solve this issue, instead of trying to like pin it on a party, it would be more so dealing with the issue of political radicalism and like that super far extremism. The last point I'll make is Lactoid. I don't know if it was intentional, but probably in the heat of the moment to not lose argument. I think you lied. I looked up specifically Mother Jones, what they qualified as mass shootings, and they do mention my name, that they don't qualify they don't count gang shootings, but they mention they have no mention of altercations. They say like types of crimes is things they don't qualify, but if shootings stem from an altercation like in a club or something like that, that would by their categories that would count as a mass shooting. That was something you said. I was just pointing out.
No, so they don't specifically talk about. So I'll just read the paragraph, right? So our research focuses on indiscriminate rampages in public places resulting in 4 or more victims killed by the attacker. We exclude shootings stemming from more conventionally motivated crimes, such as like armed robbery or gang violence, or in which the perpetrators had not been identified. So when the whole point is to focus on indiscriminate rampages.
Sure, but there's tons of altercations that have nothing to do with crimes.
Absolutely, but Bam is pointing out the same thing that I was pointing out in situations where you have something like a crime at a club in which there's a violent altercation at a club, and then in response to that altercation, then they ended up did someone goes and starts shooting. For example, I think I have one of them written down. I think his name was or Timothy Rush. He says. The criminal complaint says Rush fired intentionally and indiscriminately, and that he started shooting. So in that case, then I guess by your thing, that would be considered a
violent crime,
at a large crowd of people. So in that consideration, then that would fall under those statistics, right? Like if he fired intentionally and indiscriminately into a large crowd of people, then that would be a mass shooting, right?
So I don't know if that's listed in the database.
No, I'm not asking you. I'm not asking you if it's listed in the database. I'm not asking you to itemize it. I'm saying just based off of what you were saying that they control for, that would qualify, right?
No, based on what they control for, it wouldn't qualify if there was an altercation.
It doesn't mention altercation.
It doesn't say that. Bam just read it. Doesn't say that, and you just read that it didn't say that.
So if you're talking about like a violent altercation, right? So I guess it doesn't specifically mention like the word altercation, but when it's saying that the point is to focus on indiscriminate rampages and exclude shooting stemming from more conventionally motivated crimes.
Yeah, so
and it lists 2 examples. It lists 2 examples, such as like armed robbery or gang violence. The point of this database is
neither of those.
Is to remove violent altercations, which is why the thing you just mentioned
is not in the database. They didn't read that. Yeah, so now that Bam read the thing and it doesn't say the thing that you said that it said, now that we know that you just lied there, that's fine. So what I will add is the additional information for Timothy Rush was that the criminal complaint also says, and that he started shooting after someone else fired first. So if someone responds in a situation and they're responding to a violent altercation from a more violent area, then if this would be considered one of these indiscriminate things because he is shooting indiscriminately into the crowd because he doesn't know where the fires are coming from, I don't think it's justified. I'm not whatever. But my point being that this is another one of those things where again you have to control for those kind of things. That's why you would look at more hate crime based mass shootings, and in those cases, that's where you get the statistic that I.
Yeah, but I think the fact that Timothy Rush isn't on this list, I think speaks to
we don't know if it's on the list. He didn't know on the list.
You
can look at it.
You can look it up. You can search by name.
Yeah, you can search by name.
I think the fact that
this list was which was a month ago. Dude, don't talk to me, please. I don't want to
include the Buffalo shooter. Why?
It has the Buffalo shooter in it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then maybe I'm wrong.
So the fact that it doesn't have Timothy Rush, I think speaks to Lacto's belief that hey, they are taking this into account, and that's why he's not on there.
But you think this list is fully exhaustive?
They list their criteria.
You think this list is fully exhaustive?
For their criteria, I assume that they have a data set. Again, like I'm giving you the findings of like a data set. You are just saying like, well, what if they don't know? Well,
No,
what if it's
what I'm
what if it's
saying
not
is they're not
exhaustive?
controlling for a
You
specific
have
thing.
no evidence for any of your critiques.
What I'm saying is that they're not controlling for a specific thing, and what you're doing
How do
is
you know that? How do you know that?
You just read the
doing
criteria.
lying. You're lying and saying they are controlling for this thing and using specific
Dude, we
verbiage.
just showed that they did.
And find out that what you were saying was not true. Bam looked it up and found out you were lying. You said that they specifically controlled for physical altercations. Yeah. Those were the words that came out of your mouth, and you were lying.
No, they did.
You liar.
Look it up because Doobie fucking showed it.
You lied.
God. Oh my
Timothy,
God. You lied.
Why do you keep yelling? Like,
So,
calm down.
fanatic,
Nobody's
you're
lying to
you,
you.
fanatic.
It never
Jesus
Fanatic,
Christ.
you are going way off on this, and I have no fucking clue why. So you're so wait, no, you
want the white people to be the bad guys.
people talking over you all
You told
don't
them.
talk over me. You
nigga, you trusting me. He lied. That's why.
No, give me a second.
Spartacus.
So he said, so what he was saying is that they controlled for it. From what Bam said, it appears as if they controlled for it. You are saying he lied with no basis to give as to why he lied. You are not giving a basis. You lied because this is that.
I did.
Didn't say what he said.
I'll say it again, since none of you niggas are listening, which is why I needed to provide a clip earlier to prove what he said when he lied the last time and strawmanned me. And if I need to find a clip, I'll do that again too. What he said specifically was that they controlled for physical altercations. Those were his words, verbatim, yet again. And they didn't control for that. Bam looked it up and found out, no, they didn't say that. I'm looking up
Altercation wasn't on the fucking list.
And then he read what exactly they controlled for and said, I'll read the entire paragraph, and it didn't include that verbiage. It didn't say those words. So once again, he lied because he said it specifically said that they controlled for physical altercations verbatim.
Bam found a physical altercation and it wasn't on the list.
If you can't understand that, then miss me.
Okay, Spartacus, I'm sure you had something else you wanted to say. Go ahead and say it, and then I gotta get the pan.
Yeah, I just think that we've gone entirely off topic. I think that mass shooters, most of them, if not all of them, are terrorists. So we're going to talk about like these huge mass shootings that come up in news. Most of not all the ones that go into the news system are terrorists. It's not uncommon to see this, and that's unfortunate. But I do, like I said, I don't think you can lay this at I don't think you can lay this at Republican feet just the same way I don't lay this at Bernie's feet. When the Bernie supporters shot up the Republicans playing baseball, I didn't lay that at Bernie's feet. I don't lay this at Republicans' feet. They're radicalized through other means, which isn't the actual people that you're referring to, such as this shooter was radicalized by 4chan, in which the Republican Party does not control 4chan in any way, shape, or form.
So
Spartacus, the majority mass shootings are not Spartacus. That. They're not terrorists.
I don't know if that individual who shot up the baseball field. I don't remember his exact politics there, but I don't know.
He was a Bernie bro.
A Bernie bro.
Yeah.
But
his manifesto had Bernie all over it.
I won't even fight you on it though, one way or the other. I won't fight you on it. But right, we can understand that Bernie doesn't push any message, even close, even hinting at putting violence against or committing violence against others, right? We already know that. No one's going to disagree? Good. All right.
No, I don't disagree, no.
Yeah, exactly. Great. So Donald Trump is not the same, right? Like, see, I would blame Donald Trump for a lot of the violence we've seen in the past, right? I'd blame him for this, at least some of the blame at this, for this current shooting, and especially the we could literally see a rise in hate crime violence under Donald Trump. Like the racists, right? Which problematic pan can't like seem to understand. Like they might have some things in common with white supremacists. Don't worry, I'll get you a chance to respond to me. But like the racists seem to have gotten encouragement for him, right? Like we could see that. We can see it in the numbers. That's exactly what fucking happened, right? So when a man goes up on stage, right, who's the fucking president, and spouts out this like hateful rhetoric again and again, and we can find the clips. They're easy to find, right? This isn't something that's a secret. That he actually, let me not distract with that one. But like this man who's done this constantly, he's built his fucking political platform on it, has done this, right? Then we can see a connection and maybe draw a line and say, hey, maybe this guy bears some of the responsibility, along with many others within the Republican Party. Correct?
Does Trump say anything about birth
I can
rates? I'm curious.
Before that,
so I can slightly agree, and the reason I say that is I don't think Trump pushed the white replacement theory whatsoever. Like I said, I can lay this partially at the feet of Tucker Carlson. But I think we're pushing the envelope here a little bit when you bring in Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form pushed the white replacement theory. No.
Okay. All right.
Stand by and stand down.
Amazing.
Can we say one quick clarifier? First off, the vast majority of mass shootings in this country are not terrorist attacks. The vast majority are non-politically motivated, which is why we need the specific distinction, because of the fact that anything in which somebody shoots multiple people, like again, gang altercations, by most states' definitions, are considered mass shootings. So when you start talking about politically motivated, racially based terroristic attacks, those things are different. That's why I was calling Doobie out on that earlier, because when Doobie was when we were looking at a racially based, motivated terroristic attack, right? By definition, a terroristic attack is something where somebody's doing something for political aims, right? And that's why these things are different. So then comparing that to like a gang shooting, or comparing that to a response to a violent altercation, all of these kinds of things, or comparing that to something where there's like someone that's literally in like during the commission of a crime, right? Like these things are not the same. That's why I was calling Doobie out on that earlier. So you're just wrong.
Right, but it's fine to compare it to Frank James were last month, though, right?
Sure, that specific incident. And when you did that earlier, I said, yes, as long as you're recognizing that James Frank is a hyper minority and that there's probably over a 10-to-1 ratio for white people comparing these crimes. So then bringing that up is disingenuous, because we know that that is not a commonplace crime for African Americans in this country.
Okay, so the reason I think
problem with white mass shooters.
I gotta get Pan. Then you do the okay, all right. So Pan, right? Please continue with your nonsense.
Happy to. So, I agree with Fanatic to an extent here. I do think that, despite what Doobie claims, it is going to be disproportionate that, white nationalists are going to be committing violent crime far more than black nationalists. I want to say though that yes, there is more overlap between Republicans and fascists than Democrats and fascists. I'm not denying that. I'm only pushing back on Prime's point that because there's an overlap between the Republicans and fascists, that must mean that conservatives are responsible for the actions committed by fascists. I mean, the same way there is an overlap between the Democrats and communists more than there is the Republicans and communists, arguably. That doesn't mean that Democrats are going to be responsible for all actions of communists. And I know it's not exactly the same because fascists are worse than communists, but I'm just trying to illustrate my point.
No.
And when we talk about Trump, I don't think that Trump ever talked about birth rates or white replacement or something, which we know is what specifically inspired this shooting. If you want to say Trump inspired hate, I agree. If you want to say Trump inspired the shooting, you're going to have to show me where he contributed to the great replacement theory, which is what caused the shooting.
I'm sorry. The thing that frustrates me, right? Because Pan, like, I actually respect Pan. I respect him a great deal, right? And I think he's a very intelligent individual. Like, and I absolutely mean it. I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything. Absolutely, I think he's a very smart individual, right? So I know he can do better than this. I know he can, right? Like, I'm disappointed, really. Pan, buddy, please, right?
Well, what do you disagree with about that?
Fucking everything. Don't worry, right? So yes, I'm not saying just because there is overlap that one is responsible for the others. No, I'm saying that the Republican Party, right, members who I could start naming a few, right, and you say, well, they're not a white supremacist, certainly not, right? And I'd probably agree with you, they're not white supremacists, but they have no problem using that racist language, like no problem leaning into that dog whistles, and not pushing back against it when they see it in their party. Right?
Did racist language cause this mass shooting?
Get to that. Yes, racist language causes mass. Yes, absolutely. Fucking yes.
We're
absolutely.
This specific shooting in general, yes.
This specific shooting.
Yes,
that
was the topic of the discussion.
No, it's okay. Yeah. All right. Multiple things, right? So one, that moment where John McCain pushed back against that woman who was saying Obama was like a terrorist or some shit, that crazy white woman way back when. That is a rarity. Mostly the Republican Party just folds. There are definitely Republicans, like politicians, Republican politicians who fucking know better. But they know that their political future is based on if not tolerating these races, but like endorsing them. right? This is a fucking Ron DeSantis went to a white supremacist meeting, a gathering, right? And then when he was caught at it, like this is when he was campaigning for governor, when he was caught at it, he's like, oh, I had no idea who these people are. I didn't actually look into it. I just showed up and started saying words at these people, right? Like this nonsense never fucking stops. So then when you are saying like there's some sort of breaking point in history, which is what conservatives love to do, right? They make things like breaking point in history where all those things in the past will admit, oh yeah, there was racism in the past, but here at this point in time, right, at some nebulous point, like all that magically went away. When did the party, of the Southern strategy, the Republican Party, when did they stop doing that? When do they stop hitting all those dog whistles, right? Well, at what point the Republican Party figure, oh, now we're better than that. Now we've evolved past this. No, there's still banking on racial animus. You've already understood that. You get that anti-immigrant sentiment that they push. It's not that they're simply draw. Well, I shouldn't say that, but like they are pushing policies and they're pushing rhetoric, right, that says those people are the fucking problem, right? And they get in here, they're dangerous. They're coming for you, right? They literally say that they're coming for you. They'll put it in their political ads that they're coming for them. And then for you to say, right? Oh, and then also, and a more recent example of all this would be during the pandemic. What did Trump do, right? And the rest of the Republican Party call it the China virus, right? What do we see? What do we see? And not just the China virus, just blaming the Chinese, right? And then we saw a vast rise in attacks against our Asian brothers and sisters, right?
See, I think that's a perfect thing you can pin on Trump. Yeah, you can blame that on Trump, right? Trump says stuff about Asian hate crimes rise. If you can show me that Trump said stuff about white birth rates and all this bullshit, which is what explicitly caused this
sure.
I don't know any
Let me steal a minute. I got you, bro. I got you. It's really simple. So here's the ways that Donald Trump did that. When you get into a situation where you have like white nationalists marching and like quoting really like hateful rhetoric against Jews and things like that, and then he says there are good people on both sides, I think that's when he does that. When he's being told to disavow like literal KKK members and leaders, and he refused, or he's really reluctant to do that, and it takes like multiple people calling him out and it getting into a really grand stage before he finally says, okay, fine, I disavow, and he says so with a very reluctant tone. Or when he's literally in the middle of a political debate and he says stand by and stand down to people who also espouse great replacement theories like freaking the Proud Boys. All of these things, when he started talking about, oh, the immigrants are coming over and they're violent and they're rapists and so on and so forth, when he did the Muslim ban, right? And it would have been one thing, I get that it wasn't just an all-Muslim ban, I get that, but the fact that he literally referred to it as a Muslim ban and says things like, yeah, we got to stop them from coming into this country. All of these things are the things that he's doing that are all very much in alignment with all of the same talking points and arguments from the Great Replacement Theory. Like, that's why these things are a problem. Yes, I get the Great Replacement Theory is significantly more nuanced than that, but you can't sit here and avow all of these sort of like talking points and all this nonsense and then just say, oh, my hands are completely clean, when these people start becoming more emboldened and start doing heinous things. That's what Trump did. Yes, he seconded all this.
Just because he didn't say like exactly those points, right? But he said literally everything else surrounding those points, right? Like that doesn't mean that his hands are clean. In fact, he and his whole crew set the stage, right? The whole MAGA movement set the stage for all this. That's what I'm referring to. So like this is what conservatives, this kind of logic is what conservatives use to like deny systemic racism exists, right? It's like, well, there's no racist laws in the books. Actually, there are, right? Like if you look hard enough on state laws, right, there actually are. But the ones that are actually being enforced, right? Well, there's no racist laws in the books, right? Well, you can point to laws that disproportionately affect African Americans and negatively, right, and other minorities negatively. But they don't say black. They don't say black. So obviously they can't be the same. Obviously these two things have nothing to do with each other. So racism equal dead. So, but I know you're better than that. I'm sorry, I do know you're better than that. So I don't know why you're making these points.
Because I think that there's a difference between the type of racist that Trump is and the type of racist that a person like the shooter was. And I think that racism, I don't think directly comes from like some sort of Trump racism. I think it comes from a much more extreme place. I don't think one caused the other. Now both are hateful and I disavow both. I'm not saying that like Trump was lovely and nothing he said about immigrants was bad, and he was only talking about the bad ones. I'm not excusing what Trump said. I am saying that although I do think he's dog whistling and stuff, I don't think the dog whistle is about we need to kill them. That's what I'm saying. I think there's an important difference between the type of racism that is discriminatory and the type of racism that is genocidal. And I think by confusing the two, it's probably not a good idea because if you can't distinguish between, first of all, you have to deal with the primary threats. The primary threats are the people who advocate genocide and shit like that. I agree that we need to talk about the other type of racism too, which is all very severe, and I'm not trying to discount. I just think that it's a mistake to group it in with the type of racism that mass shooters, white mass shooters targeting black people have.
Okay, DB, please raise my blood pressure again.
So 2 things, probably 3. So Trump had been denouncing David Duke since like the 90s, right? So he's been very clear about not liking David Duke, not liking the KKK. In fact, he refused to run as a Republican in like over 20 years ago.
His blood pressure.
Please stop. Because the party, he felt like the party was attracting people like David Duke and the KKK, right? So to say that he was like iffy about denouncing David Duke or whatever, or white nationalists or the KKK, like that's just not true. Like you can go to politifact.com, look this up. It's not true. It wasn't true when Rubio said it. It wasn't true when Biden said it. It's not true. He's always denounced these people, right? So, but I have an issue with like kind of the same thing that Penn is doing, though I wouldn't give you that Trump's a racist. I don't think he is. But to say that him being anti-illegal immigration, therefore he's pushing anti-illegal immigration rhetoric. Therefore, he's propping up white nationalism and white nationalist talking points. I think it's really silly. I think, and to say that, hey, because he's against illegal immigration, therefore he's pushing the white genocide narrative on the Great Replacement shit, is again silly. There are people like Bernie Sanders, right? If you want to go back to Bernie, who say, oh, the 1% is doing this, and the rich are doing this to you, and blah blah blah. Who uses like these really like populist messaging, right? In their campaigning. That's exactly the kind of shit white nationalists say, right? It's just they identify the elites, the 1% as Jews. That is the only difference there. Right? So if we're talking about like some kind of like slippery slope of, well, hey, if you go further on the spectrum and in anti-illegal immigration, you're gonna get to genocide of immigrants at some point, right? Sure, but if you do the same thing with Bernie Sanders rhetoric, you'd get to Jews way more quickly, right? So I think it's really silly to try to point fingers here and say, hey, this party sort of agrees on this point. If you go to like a really extreme case, that they're going to say that, hey, illegal immigration is bad, therefore we need to take that to the extreme. Say, hey, that because they're saying illegal immigration is bad, they're propping up this idea that all brown people should be massacred. Is I think super dishonest. I don't think we need to go there. And the reason I think it's important to point out that the vast majority of these shootings are not committed by, white nationalists and fucking KKK members, is because I think the narrative that's going to be propped up here is the narrative that black people are under attack in this nation, right? And that white nationalists are roaming the streets massacring black people because it's an extremely politically convenient narrative for the Democrat Party, right? So to put against please, people to further hold on, no, you're not, right? So to continue to push that divide into this country, when we see how this plays out from people on the left and the right who are engaging in racial violence because of this fucking rhetoric, I think it's really disgusting, right? So I think we should stop doing that.
Ignoring your whataboutism, you literally said earlier that you were actually defending the idea of using proportionality. So then if black people are only 13% of the population, but 53% of all victims of hate crimes, then it does sound like they're under attack, right?
Wait, hold on, but that's not true.
I thought so. Okay.
Wait, hold on. You're misrepresenting the position again for some reason. Okay. So what was said earlier is that obviously, if we look at just the fucking raw numbers, white people are a mass majority in this country. So if you look at the hate crimes, yeah, they're going to be the majority of the people that commit the hate crimes. Like they're the majority of people that commit most crimes in this country because they're just the majority of the people in the country. Right? Hold on. But if we were to look at proportionately, yeah, black people commit them disproportionately. White people are actually underrepresented proportionate to their population share. Right? That's just true.
that was a false thing that he said earlier too. But you were
No,
in
it's
favor
not.
of proportionality. Yes, it is. I literally linked the statistics. He was just
Okay,
lying.
hold on,
Anyway,
Fanatic.
you were in
Fanatic,
favor of
Fanatic,
proportionality,
please,
and
Fanatic,
if you were in
Fanatic,
favor of
can you just answer this
proportionality,
question?
then if that's
Fanatic,
the
can you answer
case,
this
then why are
question?
you not saying able to make this
so
statement?
dishonest.
If you were under the impression
You're being
that
totally
proportions
dishonest
do
right
matter, then why are you not willing? Then you would have to own the position that Black people are under attack if we're the vast
Why?
majority of recipients of hate crimes.
No, because hate crimes aren't that big a deal. They're not that big a problem in this country.
So
The vast majority of, if we're talking about proportion, the vast majority of crimes that happen in this fucking country are not hate crimes, right?
Okay.
So to say
we
that, hey,
are
we're under attack
Comes
because a
to
few
hate
thousand people a year in this country of 300 million people are attacked on the basis of their race is really fucking stupid. Right, and it
So-
pushes that divide further because it's
15,000
politically
Black people
convenient
are
to you.
dying
It's
per
also
year
really
from hate
fucking
crime. You would
stupid.
say that they're
Given
not
that we
under
can see the
attack?
consequences of doing that.
That's crazy. So
And further,
okay,
and further, I
you
wasn't done
wouldn't say we're
speaking, by the way.
under attack when it came to
I
the
wasn't
war
done
on drugs.
speaking, by the
You
way. I
wouldn't
wasn't
say
done
we're
speaking, by the
under
way.
attack when it comes to
Please,
hate
I wasn't,
crimes, then.
please, I
You
wasn't
wouldn't
done
say that we're
speaking.
under attack
I
when it
wasn't
comes
done
to the
speaking.
educational
Oh my
system.
God.
So
Please,
all
I
of these
was
various
wasn't
things
done
that are
speaking.
clearly being
Dude,
used against Black people, none of them you would say that then, right? Because we can literally look at every isolated one. We can say when it comes to prison,
You're not-
that
you're
the
not
average
even-
Black person
sorry,
isn't going to
he's
prison,
not.
right? It's only 1 in 4, so it's
Oh
only
my
25%, right? So then at that case, then you wouldn't say that that's being used against Black people, right? So then
Fanatic,
literally, if you start
that's
looking
That's
at
when
all of
people
these
talk over you, but you talk over
Dude,
everybody else. It's
Everybody, everybody else.
You're
right. You know why I talk
You
over
can-
is because these
Fanatic
straw men
show.
will talk over
nonstop.
you.
And if I feel like I'm in a conversation with straw men, then y'all gonna start speaking over me.
Okay,
And ultimately, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not going to straw man. Every time I'm talking,
Doobie,
I'm fairly representing people. That's why.
Doobie. I want to hear Doobie's point. Doobie's, please.
Yeah. Okay. So, further, I think that one thing I don't think we've really touched on here is this side. I think I kind of touched on it earlier, right? This casual racism toward white people, this excusing of using racial slurs toward white people that we've seen on this platform from some of the people on this panel. Right? Say, oh, it's not that big a deal when white people call the C word. You know, no, fuck it. No, white people. Oh God, poor white people. Yada yada. Well, we know there are polls on this, right, that show that white people as a group, they do feel like they're racially under attack and they're racially discriminated against. Right. So given that we know that that's the case, and we know that that kind of feeling can push people toward white nationalism, toward extremism, continuing to do that kind of shit is actually furthering this problem that you think you have. Right. So we should stop doing that. We should call out people when they do that. And we should also stop driving the racial divide in this country.
And stop denying the fact that Black people are being completely targeted when it comes to hate crimes within this country and have been, from racist officers to all of these other things. We have the data to support that. And then I don't know who on this panel is like literally saying it's not that it's okay for people to use racial epithets against white people. But I think there's a very big difference between saying, oh, white people feel like they're being attacked, and me being able to point out the literal laws that are like disproportionately negatively impacting Black people, the actual hate crime statistics. Like we're looking at discrimination when it comes to job practices and hiring practices and pullover rates by police officers. And when we look at all of the data that actually demonstrates that not only do Black people feel it, we can literally quantify it. And then you're trying to compare that to white people's feelings on college campuses, talking about, yes, we are the most oppressed class in the freaking country. Get the freak out of here. What the hell
data does not show that. The data does not show any.
I literally linked it already. Everybody knows that data shows
that Black people are actually, because you mentioned the prison system earlier, right? And how they're disproportionately in the prison system. It's because we know that they disproportionately commit the crime in the country.
Nope.
The existence of like a disproportionate like statistic, right, doesn't equal racism, right? It means that there are other issues within this community that need to be dealt with, right? So we can bring this number down.
Okay, so when what I'm talking about when it comes to like the prison sentencing, what we're talking about disproportionate sentencing for similarly situated Black people for committing the same crimes as their white counterparts, but getting more time. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the war on drugs and its selective enforcement, specifically being used against Black people. We're talking about prosecutorial discretion where they're disproportionately using mandatory minimum sentences against African Americans. We're talking about we're talking about harmful practices like cash bail systems when they're being used in various ways for people who are not flight risk in order to ensure that Black people spend more time in prison. And when we're talking about like the hiring practices, all of these things are literal quantifiable things. These things are we know that these things are real, and you're comparing that to white people's feelings.
No, hold on. Like 90% of what you just said was total bullshit. Right? So if we're going to talk about like hiring, Black people and other non-whites in this country have organizations specifically dedicated to getting them jobs, getting them education, getting them
and you're still not able to offset the damage.
Getting them access to money, right? So if anything, the discrimination there is against white people who don't have access to that because of the color of their skin, right?
Okay.
So and then further, right? It's not true. The 20% disparity in sentencing isn't real. Right. If you actually look into those numbers, what that has to do with how
I didn't quantify the percentage.
Yes.
You're strawmanning me.
You said 20% earlier. You did say 20%.
I did not. Because the actual number is 19. I would never say 20. I never said 20.
You said the word 20%.
I did not. Fine. The same way I found the statistic earlier, where that nigga lied, you can find it right now. I never said 20. You're a liar.
Given that you know the numbers. Given that you know the numbers. Hold on. Given that you know the numbers. What can you tell me why you think it is that when Black and white what's the word I'm looking for? Alleged perpetrators of crimes. What's the word? You know what I mean, right? So if a white person, Black person are alleged to have committed a crime and they cooperate with the police, right, and they get something called I forget what the exact word is, but they get the there's no significant difference whatsoever when they cooperate with the police and the prosecutors in the way that they're sentenced. In Black women, for example, also no significant difference at all in their sentencing.
That's not true.
Right? It is true. I can show you the numbers.
So you're just wrong. So first off, regarding the statement about the fact that we have specific organizations whose whole goal it is to freaking help Black people be able to get jobs, the necessity for those organizations is specifically because of the fact that we know that there are already discriminatory racist hiring practices. This is why we created these things in the first place. That's not racist against white people. That's used to offset white racism. Number one, just the fact that when you're doing something to offset a harm that's being caused by an individual, yes, it's going to require discrimination when discrimination was the original thing that was that the problem that you're trying to offset. That's the only way you can do it. In other words, if we're trying to offset harm that you're aimed at Black people, that means we're going to have to aim the help specifically at Black people to offset that harm. That's not discriminatory. That's not harmfully discriminatory. That's literally trying to offset harm. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to these sentencing practices, and I mean these sentencing problems, what we're finding is that prosecutors are significantly more likely to introduce mandatory minimum sentences to African Americans. A large part of this is due to the fact that African Americans don't have lawyers. When you have a lawyer can argue for better plea bargaining system, for better pleas, and then they're less likely to introduce those things. So that in and of itself is why a lot of these things persist. And the reason why that persists is because most of the time in these cases, Black people can't afford the lawyers because Black people are hyper overrepresented when it comes to poverty rates, right? And so with all of these things, then we obviously know that the sentencing is completely disparate. I can't believe you're actually arguing contrary to this.
So if it's a lawyer thing, then wouldn't it? If it's a lawyer thing, wouldn't it be class, not race?
So
that would be
as
based off class.
Yes, sure, Sprout. And what I said earlier, one, obviously we've already recognized that even when it comes to literal skin tone, race is also a factor. So yes, class is a factor and race is a factor. But the problem is, in this country, class has been dictated by race. When you recognize that literally one generation ago, my mother's generation, they literally had race-based systems that specifically said Black people couldn't get property. We already know that property represents the vast majority, like that's 70% of people's wealth portfolio. Real estate. So if that's people's real estate is their wealth portfolios, and then you literally say Black people aren't going to have access to this real estate, then you've already created a class like separation there. And then now you're saying, well, we're not going to make it race based anymore. We'll only make it class based. But you've already created these class divisions by race.
We can pull stats if we want to.
Wait 1 second. So I don't think anybody here is going to disagree with the fact that like generational poverty is a thing, right? And that the effects of Jim Crow and racist policies are still exist, right? This didn't go away when the Civil Rights Act was passed, whatever.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But I think making the claim that white people are being targeted in this country, right? When them and other non-whites are the only groups that have programs specifically designed to help them, right, is really fucking weird.
What is the purpose of those programs?
To undo exactly what Fanatic was talking about, right? So this generational poverty due to racist programs, right?
Why would you say it's racist for them to exist?
Please, that's not what I said.
That's like what you said.
No, it is not. No, it is not.
You
Listen,
did. You said white people
no.
being targeted.
I'm saying that they're not being targeted. I'm saying that the things that we have in this country, the systems in place that we have in this country that target people based on race, are helping non-whites, are specifically built to help non-whites.
To offset the damages that were caused by whites.
Yes, but to say that given that these things exist to help non-whites because of the generational racism, poverty due to racism in the past, given the fact that these fucking things exist, I think this speaks to the fact that the system is not racist, that our country is no longer racist, and that black people aren't being targeted in the street because they're black. Given again that hate crimes in this country are such a tiny fucking percentage of the crimes in this country. It's a very rare occurrence in this country, right? So that fact, right? I think points to the fact again that hate crime specifically on the basis of race is extremely rare in this country. It's a tiny proportion of the crime in this country, right? So given that fact, I think it's silly to go around saying that black people are being hunted and that they're under attack in this country.
I didn't say they were being hunted. What I did say was that they were under attack, and I listed a whole bunch of systems. And we obviously know that we have the largest prison population in the freaking world. I think we're close to 50% of the entire prison population of the world, even though we're only 330 million people. So clearly, that's one of the ways, and that's specifically the criminal justice system is what's been used to be targeting black people. Secondly, simply saying that the existence of a system to offset the harm, not just past harm, but ongoing harm directed at African Americans, at black people, to say that, hey, there's a system in place that's used to try to offset this damage, does not mean that this damage doesn't exist. It just means that we're trying our best to address the situation. And that in and of itself, for example, if you have a system that says we're going to try to provide room and board for runaway slaves, that doesn't mean that that slaves aren't being targeted. It doesn't mean that slavery isn't a problem. And it just means that, hey, we're trying to offset the ongoing damage against these people. And that's what those systems are in place. You did say earlier, and it isn't, I don't have to address what you said earlier. What we can say now is that all of these systems that are being used specifically to target African American people or black people in this country, they're indicative of the fact that we are still being under attack. And simply saying that hate crimes are one thing is not enough when we're talking about all of these other systems: hiring practice, criminal justice system, the war on drugs, renting practices. The list can go on. All of these things are still being used to target black people, so we are still being attacked in this country. But they're not. Both by white extremists, and by politicians.
Can you explain how being punished for a crime that you committed practice was racist? Can you explain hiring practice?
Please, being punished for a crime that you committed isn't racial attack.
But being disproportionately punished for the crime that you committed is a racist attack, and that's where the problem comes.
When your group is disproportionately committing the crime, they're going to.
No, we're not talking about. No. We're talking about disproportionate sentencing rates. So that means per crime committed. If a black person and a white person commit the same crime, there is a disproportionate sentencing rate. We're not talking about just collecting all of the total sentencing and comparing those two. That would be really illogical. We're talking about comparing the rates for people who are similarly situated with the same prior history and looking at the differences in sentencing rates, and we're finding that black people are harshly more whatever. We had an entire Sentencing Reform Act that was created in 1986 specifically because we recognized that black people were being disproportionately sentenced for crimes, and we were supposed to be offsetting that, and then it became prosecutorial discretion with mandatory minimum sentences, which are disproportionately aimed at black people. So even still, we're seeing disproportionate sentencing for black people for the same crimes.
Okay, again, I think you're misrepresenting those stats. Maybe you just don't know, right? So if you like, we can. I don't want to go through studies with you later. No, but I don't think you do.
I do,
because if you did, then you know what he just says is bullshit.
Black male offenders receive sentences on average 19% longer than similarly situated white male offenders during the post-report period. This is from the United States Sentencing Commission.
Keep reading that.
As they had from fiscal years 2012-2016, as they have for the prior 4 period studies, the differences in length sentencing remain relatively unchanged compared to the post-Gaul period.
Okay, when I said keep reading that, you didn't get to the portion where they say why this is happening, because they do lay out reasons this is the case, right?
Oh, sure. And then look, I got you. And at the end of that article, when they finish listing all of them, there still remains a 9% premium. They said so. Even if we rule out all the other stuff, they said there still remains the very last paragraph of that article that he's reading right now says specifically there still remains a 9% premium.
No, it's 7.9%.
Okay, I'm sorry, an 8% premium.
However, right? Hold on. There's no difference at all between a black male and a white male in their sentencing when they get something called a substantial assistance partner. That's when they help the police. If this was based entirely on racism, why would black men and white men have no difference in the way that they're sentenced when they help the police?
Okay, so now we're moving it to a total different Greek, because we obviously recognize that the vast majority of people don't help the police, and the vast majority of crimes that are committed aren't ones where police help is not even necessary, nor is that even offered in most of the things. So you're absolutely moving the goalposts, number one. So number two, you already admitted in yourself from that article, if we keep reading, that we still arrive at an 8% premium. So 8% still, even if we control for all of the various factors, some of which I don't even think need to be controlled for. We know that it starts at a 19%, and when they try to control for literally everything, they still can't get rid of an 8% premium. So we can just go ahead and ignore the 19 and say 8% premium sentencing on being African American based on the article that you read and that you're familiar with. So it sounds like we still recognize that we're still being targeted by the criminal justice system. Now, to PrimeCayes earlier, you were asking a question specifically about what hiring practices are there.
Hold on,
that,
there's no evidence.
No. You are not going to sit here and you're not going to sit here and make fun of me. I was asking a fucking genuine question.
I'm responding to your question, you idiot. You asked me a question and I'm responding, you moron. So the response, you idiot, is specifically.
Oh my God!
He asked me a question and doesn't want me to answer.
Oh my God! Stop it! Knock it off! Knock it off!
I'm sorry. Did you want me to answer or not? I was answering the question that he asked. What?
With a huge amount of disrespect. I was asking very genuinely with a huge amount of disrespect.
I'm answering the question that you asked me, and now you're going to sit there and say, hold on, shut the hell up. I'm actually addressing you. I can't just ignore you and not treat you with indignity, so shut the hell up while I'm answering the question that you asked me. So anyways, the answer to your question is specifically that the racist hiring practices are, one, the felonies function as a scarlet letter, and we're finding that employers are not willing to hire black people with any sort of felonies whatsoever. That's one. Then the next one is specifically when it comes to anything with black sounding names, that they're less likely to give black people a job. They have a 50% less chance of getting a callback if they have a black sounding name. So those two things. Then we're also finding that they're less likely to they're less likely to give them comparable salaries to their white counterpoints. Those are another racist hiring practices. Four, there's plenty of jobs that just won't hire you when it comes to the interviewing practice once they discover that you're black if you don't have a black sounding name. So there's racist hiring practices from the naming, from to the interviewing process. Obviously, like things like criminal history, obviously severely more impact black people than they do white people. In fact, the studies that I was seeing in Arizona stated that black people without felonies had a harder time getting a callback than white people with felonies. So there's all sorts of racist hiring practices that are specifically aimed at African Americans.
Yeah.
The last thing.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So to be clear, the main thing is
we are over time. We are over time. Like we can continue on in the panel, but we are over time. Okay. So to my audience, thank you all for being here. Much appreciated. We are going to continue on. The stream does not end. We're going to continue on to open walk on panel right after this, right? We're going to. I could see chat was very invested in this conversation, so I'm sure all of you have many things to say, and that will be your time to say it. So stick around. More content for you, as we always do. Okay. So, and if you're liking the content so far, if you stumbled onto this channel, hit that follow button right now. Hit that follow button. Make sure notifications are on, so you know I'm going live every 7 nights a week. We always have some sort of content for you, either here or on YouTube. Right. So hit that follow button. Also, expect social and chat for our social media. If I can spell it, I can't fucking spell it apparently. But for our social media, we're hit up our Twitter, where we let you know what's going on. Hit up our Twitter. Discord, everything happens at Discord, including the open walk on panel that's going to happen, right? So if you want to be a part of that, you got to be part of the Discord. But just be part of the community. That's where the community is at, so we'd love to see you. And then YouTube, of course, is where you can find the VODs. If you missed anything, and you missed a lot, like, comment, subscribe, consider becoming a YouTube member, supporting us that way by hitting that join button and becoming a member that way. Okay, thank you so much. We're going to... we are going to give an outro to all these individuals, but stick around. Once again, content's not over. All right, I'll start with Bam, Bam, this was a hot one. Bam, how are you feeling?
Yeah, this was everything and a little bit more. Very loud. I don't know. I have no idea how to feel. Again, I think these two topics were extremely well. They shouldn't have been. The second one shouldn't have been divisive as it ended up being. God, but I guess people will never surprise me. Yeah, my name's Bam. I don't know. I ain't got much else to say.
Yeah, lactoid. So we'll go. In fact, we're gonna go lactoid next. Lactoid. Thank you also for coming through. Yeah,
Good fanatic.
I know, but lactoid. Thank you seriously for coming through. I always enjoy talking with you. Doesn't matter if you're wrong, all right? You've got this. You've got this like country boy smile, all right, that we can't get enough of here. So thank you, Lactoid, for being part of all this.
Yeah. So Lactoid, Bane of Leftists, find me in Anti-Communism United on Twitch and Discord. I wanted to give some closing thoughts. While this wonderful discussion has been happening, I've been involved, but I've also checked every entry on that database. Not a single one describes a shooting during a physical altercation or immediately following one. Some involved some verbal arguments that occurred before the shooting, but none involved anybody being attacked, none involved any robbery or violent crime, and none involved any gang and violence or gang participation. They even excluded some things related to like prostitution, right? So anything related to like the gang sphere was excluded. This confirms what I knew and what anyone could see from the intro paragraph, and confirms the goal of the database explicitly set forth. Self-defense is obviously not considered a mass shooting, otherwise Kyle Rittenhouse would be on it, but any reasonable person would know that he was defending himself, so he's not going to be on it. As to the actual topic, as I thought, no one actually supports the shooting, which is good for both, my faith in humanity and also Twitch TOS. But blaming the anti-identitarians, the conservatives for identity-based violence, I don't think makes any sense. Do we want to bring up identity, right? White people do not commit disproportionate hate crimes. Black people do commit disproportionate hate crimes. I don't bring this up to dump on black people. I bring it up to challenge the broken narrative pushed by some of our Tariq Nasheed follower friends. The narrative of white Republicans committing disproportionate mass shootings is wrong. The narrative of white Republicans committing disproportionate hate crimes is wrong. I'm just going to close by saying, no race owes any other race anything. Individuals owe each other respect for their consent and rights, but race does not carry any obligation or blood debt. What we need to do as individuals is unify to demonize people who perform horrible crimes, whether it be hardcore Nazis, Islamic terrorists, or black nationalist shooters. All bad people, right? We need to unify, realize our history has led to the privileges that we enjoy today, and focus on stopping the real enemy. Thank you.
Lactoid, I didn't really concentrate on you this time. I sent all my vitriol to Pan, right? So next time I'll deal with that nonsense. But thank you, seriously, you're a great guy.
Thank you, Prime, so much.
Yeah, no problem. Leonatis, please, thank you also for stopping by.
Right, thank you. As far as the first topic goes, I think it's just bottom line. It's just kind of hypocritical to think that a police officer can't use discretion when applying the law, to think that an attorney general who is against a bill that bans same-sex marriage can't or can use their discretion to avoid that, but can't in the instance of abortion use the same sort of discretion. The second topic, like I said before, I wanted to get more to the root causes of these issues rather than just the partisan pot-shotting that was occurring. Although I'm not against that. It can be fun. It can be entertaining. But in overall, it was a pretty good talk until we got a little unhinged. Some people woke up on the wrong side of the bed, which is fine. I hope that's not the foundation of these kind of panels, because that's not really a welcoming space. But, despite that, I was glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, all right. Next we have, again, a person so grateful they came back to me. I've been missing them. Sprouticus, buddy, thank you seriously for spending a bit of your time. I'm sure there's other things you could have been up to, but you came through here. And I hope to see you more often.
Yeah, I'll look forward to more invites. Yeah, if you want to be able to hear my more thought out points without being as interrupted or as debatey, then you can go follow me at twitch.tv/thespaticus and twitter.com/thespaticus. You might actually enjoy what you find. May kicked off the right twice now, so a little bit more moderate than what you consider your average righty. But no, if you go follow me at twitch.tv/thespaticus and twitter.com/thespaticus.
Thank you. All right. Next we have automatic pan. Prove this name. All right, it'll never go away. I will keep it from dying. Problematic pan. We went at it today. I feel like recently we really haven't been going at it. But back to form.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to have this. In fact, you'll be happy to know, Prime, your efforts have been completely successful. Not only do I now agree that all Republicans are responsible for the shootings because they're anti-immigrant rhetoric, I'm also going to hold Democrats responsible as well. They push false anti-immigrant rhetoric like immigrants take jobs, immigrants lower wages, or open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal. And I think this anti-immigrant rhetoric really is at the heart that's driving all of these shootings. So I thank you for changing my mind. I now not only hold the Republicans, but also the Democrats, and really anyone who disagrees with me politically is, in my opinion, responsible for the shooting. I had a really good time on this panel, despite I don't mind getting heated on some things, but I had fun. Thanks for inviting me, and hopefully I made you feel very uncomfortable in my outro, which is what I was aiming for. So.
I'm fine blaming some Democrats too. We want to put some Democrats who have bought into Republican talking points. Yeah, there's a whole bunch who could probably get some blame as well for letting that go, right? For feeding into that narrative. So yeah, there's absolutely some Democrats who deserve it as well. So I'm glad, again, I have convinced Problematic Pen.
Wait, you really think that like Democrats are responsible too, somewhat?
No, not all Democrats, but there are some. Like most Democrats don't. Well, yeah, most Democrats don't buy into that. Even the
like Cinema.
Yes, Cinema. I'm sure Cinema is like fucking one of them. Yeah, she's fucking garbage human being. Yeah. So like the ones who've been pushing the rhetoric, right? Yeah, it's the rhetoric that's the problem, not the party affiliation. But okay. Continue on in the open walk on with me. Again, if I haven't finished schooling you, don't worry. I have time for you, buddy. Always. So go to our Dark Lord and Savior. His name is Doobie. And it's really good at infuriating me. He's an expert at it. He knows which buttons to push. So my man Doobie, thank you for coming through. I hit you up with invites all the time because I just appreciate your presence here. Doesn't matter what else happens. But Doobie, please.
Yeah, so Prime, thanks for putting this together. I really love, I really love like really heated discussions about all these topics. And I think it's even better when the passionate person is wrong. To the people in chat, I think some of you guys too have been kind of like passively aggressively pointing to Fnatic, being loud or whatever. These panels can get intense because like the topics we're discussing are serious, right? And you've got champions of fucking rhetoric and argumentation, extremely intelligent people fighting for positions that they believe are genuinely important to their lives and the lives of the people they care about. So yeah, people are gonna get loud, they're gonna get passionate. That's totally fucking okay. This is serious shit we're talking about. Right, so all the morons in chat bitching that Fnatic was loud or I was loud or whatever the fuck, just grow a spine. I don't know. If you're in chat, you're a dumb bitch. You should come on the open panel and fight with me. Fnatic, I love you even if you're wrong. Everyone else here is cool too. Eli, I miss you. Yeah, thanks, Prime, for having me on. Oh, and I'm Doobie. You can find me at the politics server, discord.gg/politics.
Link is in chat. Let's go to my man, Mr. Fnatic.
Listen, well, I'm just going to give my closing thoughts before I go ahead and, tell y'all niggas where you can find me and all that stuff. First off, look, obviously the war on drugs is racist. We obviously recognize that hiring practices have been obviously racist We have sentencing practices, which have been completely racist. We have home appraisals, which have been completely racist. Stop and frisk was obviously racist. Education being based on property value when property values have been oppressed by redlining is obviously racist. So, like, the idea that we have programs in like in order to offset some of these damages means that racism is gone is absolutely ridiculous. Racism is here. It's still freaking alive. This attack was racist. Like racist ideologies have been freaking here. So like these things are necessary. Secondly, the Great Replacement is real. Like, and I think like certain elements of it. Obviously, you recognize like some of these things about Jews being in power and controlling all. I don't subscribe to all that. But the idea that white people are like the hyper minority and will continue to be so and are declining is absolutely factual. I think like harmful practices like the one drop rule and things like that are really, really terrible. I think you should obviously stop dehumanizing Black people, please. Like, you don't have to objectify Black men. You can obviously recognize that even positive stereotypes can be really, really, really harmful. Like they can have crazily negative impacts, and I think that that's obviously toxic. I don't think every Black person out here, we're not all monsters. I can say that I am, at least, you know what I'm saying? I'm blessed. God is good. But that you can't look at every Black man and assume that we're all that way. I think that's an obviously harmful thing. White women shouldn't just be like specifically targeting Black men to bounce on Black dick, especially if you don't value the man that has that dick. Then lastly, Lactoid said in his statement that this is a statement that he read, some included some verbal altercations before the shooting. Now, imagine considering a situation in which there's a verbal altercation between two individuals in a violent scenario, and one of them pulls out a gun and then says, yeah, we're going to compare this to the Christchurch shooter or this Buffalo nigga. Come the freak on. That was exactly my contention from the very beginning, is that sometimes altercation with violent individuals will lead to more violence, especially in violent neighborhoods, sometimes out of self-defense, and then trying to use those statistics to try to say, nah, niggas is doing a bunch of violent stuff too. Freak out of here, nigga. We know that stuff is tied directly towards we know that stuff is tied towards economic disparities and economic depravity, and I think that's where all of this stuff comes from. So all of that to say, y'all niggas, if you disagree with any of my takes, you can obviously debate me at any time. I can be a lot more calm when it's a 1v1 scenario, as long as the person I'm talking to is actually respectful and not a complete moron. Some of you here in this panel have probably experienced the more negative interactions with me, even in 1v1 situations. Fix yourself. Twitch.tv/Mr. Fanatic. Music under the thing Fanatic. FANATIQ. I actually am a ridiculous musician. You can actually test that. Trust but verify, right? Go ahead and test that. I'm going to be going and reviewing this Amber Heard situation. I heard she got completely destroyed in this freaking Johnny. Yeah, man. I heard she got
cross exams.
Bodied. Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to see it. And to some of you guys, like Sprouticus, Doobie, Lactoid, today I'm saying hashtag you too. Y'all got, never mind. All right, that's my outro.
Oh boy. All right.
Super homoerotic. I was talking about your dick the entire panel. Now you're doing this
whole
YouTube.
time.
Calm down. Like,
wait, I'm just saying hashtag you too.
My DMs are open. Okay.
Bouncing
you violated?
on dick over and over.
Yeah. I'm talking about white women. So you're saying me talking about white women bouncing on Black dick is homoerotic?
You just even talk about your dick.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got it. You're right. Yeah, I'm sure. That's homoerotic. Talking about white women bouncing on Black dick. Yeah, y'all niggas, that's a reach and a reach and a half. That's a reach and a half.
That's pretty gay.
You just really like us to know
that. It's gay for me to talk about white women bouncing on Black dicks.
I feel like you're baiting me.
Cuckold is gay now. Now cuckolds are gay. Cuckold is gay.
I feel like you're baiting me to ask you to see your dick.
Y'all niggas is wild,
if you want me to see your dick, just send me your dick. Like, you don't need to tell me how thick it is all the time.
I'm not telling you. I'm telling. Never mind. The point is, listen,
who are you telling?
There's nothing gay about that. There's nothing gay about that. Okay. Talking about white women objectifying
bro, share dick
is an actual problem. It's an actual problem, and it needs to stop.
We can compare. It's fine.
Wow. All right.
I'm gay. Okay.
This is.
I want to go on the walk-on panel for like a little bit before I got to dip. I just really want to get some of the idiots.
Twitch has to let me do some stereotypes too. It's not fair.
So all right. Well, look, we'll rush on to that. So we're going to a walk-on panel. Anyone here is welcome to join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for spending your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion. My community, I know they appreciate you just as much as I do. Have a good one. Bye. Oh my god. These motherfuckers.